All right, welcome, welcome. I thought what we would do today, just for a little bit here, it shouldn't take too long, I'm sure. We would go over the Danny August Mason interview conducted by Ben Swan. All right, let me pull that up here. All right, just get that ready. Okay. So I figured that's what we would do here today, just for the next hour, more than likely. That's it. And but before we get there, I do want to say thank you and give a special mention here to my good friend Steven Sanzeri. Sent me his book, Ultimate Prey, the true story behind the Yosemite sightseer murders. This is a great book. You can notice this one is very new, has never really been touched. My copy with notes and everything has been touched, has been used and cited and everything. So this guy, love this guy here. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. He sent me a copy of his book. It's autographed, by the way. This is an autographed book, in case I didn't make that clear. But this is definitely, and I love reading books, but this is definitely one of my favorite books that I've ever read here. And who knows, maybe I'll read it an eighth time. And I still have so many questions, still so much that I feel like Stephen and I have not really gone over. I know he and Crip Rick have gone over a lot of things during their shows, but I still feel like there's a lot that I want to cover. Okay, so that should be good. So anyways, just wanted to say thank you for that. Appreciate that. Secret Squirrel. This is a magnet, by the way. Hey Rick, how are you, man? This is a magnet, by the way, and then got a business card here and even a little handy flyer. So that all came with it. So pretty cool. If you're in the San Francisco, Los Angeles, or San Diego area, look up Secret Squirrel. This is kind of a list. I don't know how well that's going to show up there, but that's kind of a list of what they get, of what you get for it. So, and check out their website. You will not be disappointed. Rick, 6:30 p.m. So because I'm West Coast time, so yes, Rick, sorry, missed your thing you put here. Yeah, so if all things go well, I will be on Crip Rick show later tonight. Today is June 11th, 2022, and so in about 3 hours or so. So about 3 hours or so, I should be on Crip Rick's radio show, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. If you don't know, well, I'm going to show you before we get into the fun stuff here. That'll be fun. We'll just be talking about music, nothing related to the Crowley. Okay, yeah, talking music. Yes, we will be talking music, just music only. Okay. Do a show on David Crowley's music. Just kidding. Just kidding. We're obviously going to talk about Phil Collins and how great Phil Collins is, and how both Rick and I, growing up, it's very strange because he grew up as a Phil Collins fan, and I did too. So it's really cool. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So let me screen share this. Crip Rick is probably screaming into into the camera right now. Let me go here. So for all of you that don't know, now you know. Let's see. Everybody can see this? Oh, good, good, good. Yes, so this is where we will be here. If you go to freedomslips.com, it'll take you to Revolution Radio. The archives are all there. If you want to catch any of the past shows, you can just go to enter the archives. Remember the username, and the password, RevRocks. Enter that into the archives. I probably already have it saved. You can find all of their archives. So here I have both of Rick's shows. Rick, can you remind me what time? I feel like sometimes I get the shows wrong. So I know it's 7 p.m. your time. It's 4. The Saturday show is 4 p.m. But the Monday show I believe is 3 p.m. Please help me if I got that right. And Rick also does a cool YouTube show as well several cool YouTube stuff. But he does a live YouTube show today too, Saturday. So he's all over the place. But if you go here to Crypt I've Been Thinking, this will show you all of the archives. You can download all of the past shows, including the very first one, which he had, which was an awesome guest. I'm not going to tell you who the guest was, but it was pretty awesome. That's all I'm going to say. Then he also has Crypt the Decompression Hour. This is the Saturday show here, I believe at 4 p.m. Pacific time. We are on specific time, obviously. You can catch his live or his radio shows. They go live here, and so these are the archives. I'll show you how if you want to watch him live or listen to him live, you definitely can. So I think Sophia's was the one that was on 6/4. Yes, yep, it must have been 6/4. June 4th, 2022. That's the most recent one. That's a great one. I have it up on my uh, on the podcast, I believe. Hope I put it on the right podcast show. But so I got that one up there. But the decompression hour, that's all it is. It's 1 hour, mostly music, entertainment, things to decompress from all of the things that Rick thinks about throughout the whole day, throughout the whole week, right? So obviously, all of these shows are going to mention Phil Collins, no doubt about it. All right, so to make sure everybody can see what I'm even doing. Looks like you can't. Okay, there we go. Monday, 6 p.m., 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, yeah. So the Monday show is 3 p.m. Pacific or specific time. Okay. So that's what I wanted to show. But if you want to listen live, you can always go here. So you can go into the archives. You'll find all of his past shows there. But you can just scroll down right here, click on Studio A for his Monday night show, and then he's in Studio B on the Saturday show. So come on in and join us later on. Step up here, and they have a chat room and all that good stuff. It's really cool. I feel like it's a really fun show. So check that out. We'll be in Studio B tonight. And of course, they have the schedule and all that stuff. But the archives, if you just want to download some of the past shows, they're all right there. Pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. So now we're going to get to the nitty gritty. I'm sure you all can see this. So this is the Ben Swan interview. He interviews Danny August Mason on January 23rd, 2015. So that's what we're going to go over here today. And this video was hard to find. It's hard to find. Thankfully, I had it elsewhere. But just doing a internet search for any of this, anything related to this video, I thought was hard to find. Oh, that was pretty interesting. Why is it so hard to find? Shouldn't be this hard. Yes, that is what they said. Okay, so just make sure everything's working properly. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about here. But before we get there, do one more screen share. Got to show you this. This kind of sets the scene, sets the mood, whatever you want to say. And if anybody does want to jump in here and join me, let me know. Send me a chat, private chat, comment in the chat. And, I will send you the link to join here. So, because what we're going to do, we're going to go into this one right here. We're going to look at this. Hope y'all can see this. Wait for it to come on screen. What we're looking at here, this is a guy named Zach Carter. If you don't know who Zach Carter is, he was a friend of David Crowley. He's on the phone records. Mike Boggio, I believe, when Mike Boggio, during Dan Hannan's interview with Mike Boggio, the president of Michael Entertainment Group, which is the company that was working with David to make to make Gray State into a TV series. First, it was going to be some type of a feature-length film, and then they decided it would work well as a TV series, since there were the Sons of Anarchy show was just ending, so they thought that it would be a good kind of fill-in. Now that that show is gone, there will be this void left that people will be looking for something. So it kind of tells you what they were thinking. Sons of Anarchy, I've never seen it, so I don't know. It seems raunchy to me. It seems very dirty to me, and just not into that stuff. But it seems like it was going to be kind of in those lines, or at least they were trying to take that time slot. So obviously, when they pitched it, if they were to pitch it, if they would have ever gotten to the point where they could have pitched it to FX, I think A&E is kind of involved in some of this too. I think they were pitching it to them, but whatever it was, to fill that time slot, obviously that gives me a little indication of kind of where they wanted to go. In all of David's writings and everything, I haven't seen any treatment for this TV series. So once David Crowley decides to make Gray State, and once MEG, Michael Entertainment Group, decides to make Gray State into a TV series, and they want David's supposed to go write this treatment. It's not in the journals. He doesn't really talk about it much. I don't know if I think he mentioned, he does have a Facebook post where he does mention it would be better as a TV series. So at that point, there is mention of it, but where is this treatment? There should be a treatment or something on this TV series when David is turning this into a TV series. And we just don't see that, right? We don't really see that. So that's pretty interesting. But what we do see is there was a go beat between that was helping David and helping David kind of with the Michael Entertainment Group and all that. So they had a mutual friend. I believe Zach Carter was this mutual friend that they're talking about. We'll go into that later. But this is what Zach Carter put on the Ron Paul forum. It was a forum, old school forums. He put this, and it's still up there. We can go and this is on the ronpaulforums.com, and it's still up there. I backed it up in case all of a sudden it gets taken down. But on January 23rd, 2015, so just days after the bodies are found, the Gray State Goons are in this cover-up mode. They're in this thing where they're just like, they don't want anybody even thinking elsewhere. It was David, that's it. They're trying to cover up any other questions, trying to get you to shy away from any other areas, from looking at any other possibilities. The same people that would try to rip you if you would think that, well, maybe there was some other issues, right? Maybe there was something else that happened here. Maybe it wasn't David who did this. And they would just completely get frustrated and get angry. Sometimes I feel like get violent, get condescending, whatever you want to call it. Very narcissistic people in some of these cases, making it about them. Well, this is going to hurt them if we start talking about it, if we start questioning it. Even though a lot of David's projects and a lot of this stuff is built on that. A lot of these guys who are part of these quote unquote truth media and all that stuff, it's built on that. It was built on asking questions that the official theory, the official stories, did not even bother to think about. And here they're pretty much it's the pot calling the kettle black, I guess. It's a very hypocritical thing that a lot of these guys were doing at that time. And it raised so many questions. So many questions, because it's like, why don't you guys just let the facts just speak for themselves? Why are you so desperate to try to get people to think a certain way? To try to make sure that people do not look in a certain way, do not look at a certain possibility in certain areas. It's very interesting, very suspect. I found it very, very suspect. Some of these actions done by some of these Gray State goons that contacted me, and then later wanted to play this victim, like we're going after them and attacking them. And they're the ones who are contacting us and trying to steer the narrative to what the police say and not question anything. Not That's the main thing. If you look at these guys when David was there, listen to them talk. Listen to what they're talking about. And then David Crowley dies, their friend dies, and they're all silent, and they completely do a 180 flip, flopping like a fish here, a fish out of water. Maybe that's what they are. Maybe they're scared of something. But that just shows their true colors. When push comes to shove, they're not willing to stand up for their friend. They're not willing to stand up for the truth, to stand up for whatever happened, to at least respect people's right to ask questions. They just want to play games. They just want to try to trick people. When they've been spending years telling us they're all about truth and anti-government, government is doing this, blah blah blah, and then here we have something very simple, a slam dunk case in their backyard, and what do? They run like cowards. They stay silent because it may hurt them. It may affect them. It's not about getting to the truth for them. It's about their credibility. And that's why they had to go after mine so much. It didn't work. It's not going to work because I'm not credible. My credibility means nothing to me, as we all know. And just whatever, here's the evidence, here's the facts, here are the documents, here are the journals, here's everything that we've been given, that we know that the public has been given. Here it all is. And there's nothing there that is going to prove David Crowley guilty. That's why the focus has never been on that. And even with these Gray State goons in the very start, I always say, guys, give me something. We have the evidence that David Crowley did it. We can't share it with you right now. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It's just sad that it seems some people did fall for that line of crap. But fool me once, right? Don't try to fool me twice. So if anybody does want to jump in and join in here, I'll be live for maybe. Well, we're going to play. I haven't even gotten to the video yet. I'm still rambling on about this, but we are live here today. And as people know, it's so random. So let's talk about this post. Okay, so remember, this is 123. The Gray State team is in, quote unquote, what I believe to be damage control, covering up any possibility that it was anybody else but David after the fact. Right? Here's what Zach Carter posts. Ben Swan interview with the Gray State actor Danny August Mason to be released on Monday. Ben has just wrapped up an interview with Danny August Mason, an actor in Gray State and David Crowley's creative partner on the film. The interview will be released Monday at benswan.com. Have you tried to go to benswan.com? Try to go there, see what happens. Ben's Truth in Media Project. Ben's Truth in Media Project team, Zach Carter continues, and the Gray State team have been allies over the past couple years and share a crossover member on both teams. We're all devastated. This is Zach Carter saying this. We're all devastated at the loss of a great friend, an amazingly creative young man who had a sunlight, bright future in front of him and his beautiful family. Our thoughts and prayers are with them. This is a brief article released at Ben's site. Ben Swan, Deaths of Gray State Investigation. I could not find, this link is, all these links are broken, basically. Any links that is mentioned in these two posts, they're all broken, but I would be interested to see if we have that backed up somewhere, Ben Swan's original article, way back, obviously before January 23rd, 2015. Zach Carter continues, we stayed away from much in the way of detail because we wanted to talk to Danny and have his blessing, along with the blessing from David's brother and parents before releasing anything new on the tragedy. So this is interesting here. This is the thing right here. Who is we? Who are you talking about here? We stayed away from much? Who? I know who he's talking about, and I'm sure you know who he's talking about. We stayed away. We wanted to talk with Danny and have his blessing. What the fuck do you need his blessing for? This is not about blessings. This is about finding out what happened. Not playing games, not hiding. It's like these people have never really dealt with real circumstances, with real issues. It was all fun and games, ha ha ha. It was all anti-government, this and that, protests, all this stuff. Watching all of these films, keyboard warriors, but when things got real, then we saw their true colors here, right? Because if this was a case that that they didn't know the people, they weren't friends with, anything like that, you think they would have reacted like this? I don't. It's interesting. That's what happens. In times of trial and in times where things get tough and the going gets rough, this is when you see the true colors of people. This is what I saw back in January of 2015. I saw a lot of true colors come out in people. A lot of people. A lot of people that David surrounded himself with. A lot of scared people. That just seems like they really have never dealt with any major trauma or anything like this in their life, even though they've probably been researching conspiracies and following protests and riots and have looked into other murder suicide cases and suicide cases. They know, the court system is bad, the whole commercial code thing, all of that stuff here. But when it's right there in front of your face, why would you not treat this case the exact same way? Even more so because you knew this guy. So this should be treated with more skepticism than John F. Kennedy, than 9/11, than, the two-party system, and that's why we want to vote for Ron Paul. All of these things, all these conspiracies, the government going to war when they didn't need to, all of this stuff. And they don't, the way that they treat all of those cases, they don't treat it the same for David Crowley. Does that make sense to you? It doesn't make sense to me. All right, so if you have ever, there is a video out there where Danny August Mason is dressed up as John Wank, which is the main character in the 2012 trailer and in the early version of the 2013 script. Danny August Mason's character in the Grace 8 trailer, just think of that. And there's that same character who is doing this 2-minute video, kind of like a promo for Ben Swan. So when they're talking about they have a mutual friend and everything like that, I mean, it gets, well, I'm not going to jump. I'm not going to jump too far ahead, but it gets kind of weird here. So, anyways, we're devastated at the loss of a great friend, and so it's not like it's worded. This part here to me is worded so interesting. It's just so textbook. It's like they want to make sure people know, hey, we're not saying there was foul play here, and then it gets even worse. A lot of these people just go silent and just don't talk because that would hurt their credibility in some of these circles of people that are like, well, wait a minute, why aren't we looking into this, guys? We look into all this other stuff. We talk about all these other the Boston bombing that didn't happen the way that they tell us it was. All these other shootings, things like that, Waco, whatever. But this one is fine. There's nothing here. It's like they rolled it out to you on a red carpet, and you guys just dropped the ball. Completely dropped the ball on this case of your friend, of your alleged friend. So, but it's pretty interesting. He said we stayed away from much of this because we wanted to talk to Danny. What do you need to talk to Danny for? You need to get Danny's permission. Is Danny your daddy? Big Daddy Danny? What's going on here? And have his blessing. Is he a priest? Is he a pope? What do you need his blessing for? Is he the new Freemason third degree priest to the fourth extent? Well, I don't know. I don't understand it. And at the very end, and we also, and David's brother and parents. Before releasing, what do you have to release? What news do you have to release? The only news that they released at any point in time is, yep, what the police said is right. Big news. We got that from the media. What do you need to tell us what this news is? You want to create this thing where it's, well, all sides are saying the same thing. David did it. That's what they want. They want you to think all the rational people in the quote unquote truth circles and all of that stuff. They all know David did it too. Are you kidding me? But in the end, all you need is evidence. All you need is the facts. And this is why I knew that from day one, we would destroy these people. They would be utterly destroyed. Okay? And I say we would destroy, but really they destroyed themselves because they had a choice. They had a choice to actually look into this case or to tuck their tail between their legs, go dark, and go silent and never talk about it ever again. Except when it fits your needs, when it suits you. Oh, such a tragedy, such a tragedy. The tragedy here is that you have these people who claim to be close with David, and they don't give a crap about him. If they did, they would be right here with us saying, okay, there's something wrong here. The police come up with no evidence to prove David Crowley guilty, and we're just supposed to act like David Crowley is guilty. Really, guys? These guys know better. And then it's like, what were you guys in this for then? Right? You have a slam dunk case dropped off on your porch, and you ignore it, you run from it, you hide from it, you don't investigate it. Why would anybody take these guys seriously after that? I wouldn't. Now, here's the kicker. We ask that if anyone has any questions about what happened to David and his family, rather than speculating, that you point them to this interview that we're soon releasing. Okay? So, and he doesn't leave the link in the 23rd post. In the 27th post, it is there. But in this 23rd post, it's not there. But this is interesting. This is all like it's scripted shit. We ask that if anybody has any questions, they are directing the question. If you have questions, hey, come to us. Come to us. That's it. Don't even say come. They don't even say come to the police. Hey, we also think what the police did is great. They don't say any of that. Come to them. Come to me, Hail Mary. Run with me. Quick see. What do we have here now? Do you want to ride or die? La 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 la. Something like that. And so, but here's the interesting thing where they say rather than speculating, and that's all they do is speculate. That's all they do. The reason why we're not speculating when it comes to the main thing, we can speculate on different things, but there's no speculation when it comes to the fact that David is innocent, that there is no evidence to prove David Crowley did this. That is a fact. That's not speculation. In my view, from my view, right? People could think differently. Maybe they think it is speculation, whatever. To me, it's not. It's not speculation to say that David did not do this based on the evidence and the facts, right? And that's how I feel right now because from what I've been told, we've gotten all of the information, we've gotten all of the data that the public needs to come to a rational conclusion that David did this. We've looked at the data. We've gotten data that we obviously weren't supposed to even get either. That was given to other people, given to Tony Floyd. Who knows who else? I don't know. That's a whole nother issue. So it's just interesting when they say rather than speculating, when that is exactly what they're doing, is speculating on this whole thing, speculating that David did this. When they should be saying, what this should be is we're going to find out what the truth is. So maybe that's what they thought was going to happen from Danny August Mason's interview. Maybe they didn't really know David. That maybe they had too much faith, too much stock in these people that they did not know. Maybe this woke up a lot of people and they're like, I'm not hanging around that guy. What if I get accused of a double murder suicide? They're just gonna do a thoughts and prayers video and that's it. So each person is different. So the title of that article, Ben Swan interview with the Gray State actor Danny August Mason to be released on Monday. So this makes me think this was filmed on the 23rd, January 23rd, 2015, and then based on the next post from January 27th, this by Zach Carter, this makes me think this was released obviously on that day, January 27th, 2015. If we look up a calendar, it's probably going to be a Monday. So there you go. But again, the links in both of these two articles are pretty much gone. Uh, Title of Zach's post in the Ron Paul forums. Exclusive interview, Gray State co-creator speaks about David Crowley's sudden death. So I went to this link and it's gone. It's gone. Video does not exist anymore. They don't even stand by what they're doing. Why erase the video? And that's not on them. That's on Ben Swan. And maybe his channel got nuked for other reasons. I don't know. But I was just shocked that, wow, these guys, at least Zach and whoever he's talking, when he talks about we, when he says we ask, right? Whoever he's representing, this we, this brand of we, they are pretty much, saying this is going to, if anyone has any questions, instead of speculating, that you point them to the interview that we're releasing soon. Again, we're releasing soon. I'm going to talk more about Mr. Carter, I'm sure later. I mean, when I first learned of this guy, I didn't think there was that. I think I'm Facebook friends with him, or I was. I know I was at one point. I was Facebook friends with this guy. I know who this guy is. Posted some great stuff back in the day, before all this happened. Um, and then I don't know what the heck happened here, but he is in the phone records, and there is that. So he was in communication with David towards the end of David's life. Or let me put it like this: he did call him. I think there were some phone exchanges. All right, so that's the exclusive interview. Okay, more can be found on benswan.com. Interview Gray State co-creator. Oh, co-creator. So Danny August Mason, who just a few days ago told the police that he was a just an actor, in the Ben Swan interview, which they filmed obviously on January 23rd, he's a co-creator. And here again, and we ask, this guy's doing damage control, and we ask that you please help Komel's mother, Nyla Alam, who is currently suffering from cancer. This is another odd, weird thing in this whole thing. The alums had no idea about this GoFundMe thing, and this link does not work anymore. It was taken down. I think Dan Hinnon found there was about $8,000 uh, that they raised. So that's a whole nother thing. Where did that money go? Where did the 8,000 go? Should have went back to whoever donated. That's what I would have done. But I don't know. I don't know how all that works there. But or put it to a worthy cause or something. But no, it's just who knows? Who knows what happened with that? So Nyla Alam is Komel's mother. So he's posting this too, and there were a lot of people that got caught. Oh, yeah, okay, we're posting this. This didn't seem strange to you, Zach, that there's a GoFundMe for Komel's mother? and it's like what, $5 million, $6 million or something, some crazy amount, without even asking Kamel's family if they wanted to do this. Just it's just weird. It's weird, and not directing the money towards the alums. Very weird. So the alums had Danny. This is Dan Jr. Dan Jr. created this. So David's brother created this GoFundMe thing. I don't want people to think I'm talking about Danny August Mason, but still, it's still very, very strange, I think. I don't know. So, I mean, so he throws that in there. It's just like this guy really doesn't know. They're just feeding, somebody's just feeding him talking points, if that's what he's doing. Or maybe he got caught up in it and, really wanted to help them. And I don't know. It's just weird. The whole GoFundMe thing. Every time I hear about the GoFundMe thing, and I know Dan Hinnon got a lot of negative feedback way back then because he was allowing people to comment on it in the Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook group. It's like, why shouldn't we comment on it? This is weird. Kamel's mother's hospital bills are $5 million, $6 million. Yeah, yeah. What what are you talking about? Iconic. Um, Iconic is saying. What are you saying here? Oh, okay. That Southern fruit tree didn't happen. You gotta break that one down for me. But thanks for joining. I appreciate that. Also, Rick too. I know he's just waking up, so he's probably he's probably outside smoking a cigarette right now. $20. That's what he's doing. But but yeah, thank you, Iconic. Feel free to add any comments or jump in here. We are actually live. Yay! 6/11/2022, people. 6/11/22. All right, let me not get too much off track because you know how I do. You know how I roll, unfortunately. All right, so that's pretty cool. I can expand that like that. I like that. I like that. Okay, so it just goes and we ask, please. Okay. We also ask if anyone had, here it is again, just like the other one. If we ask if anyone has any, it's almost like he just took a template and just kind of tweaked it a little bit. If anyone has any questions. And here's what he says on January 27th, this post. We also ask if anyone has any questions to say about what happened to David and his family, rather than speculating that you point them to this interview. So it's the same thing. It's a copy paste. Point them to this. He just went bump, took out that part right there that we're releasing soon, and that was it. So that's it. I mean, again, okay, so all right, so we're all going to stop speculating, right? We're all going to stop speculating. And thanks, Rick. I knew it. I knew it, Rick. I knew it. I knew what you were doing, my friend. Canada. If it's Canadian cigarettes, probably have something a little. Probably have some maple syrup in them. That's my guess. All right, let's get into this. We're ready for the interview. So here's the interview. This was released 1/27/2015, right? Or 1/26 maybe. Um, Anyone has any questions? Yeah, rather than spec. So that's a key word. Remember that. Remember that phrase when he says rather than speculating. Rather than speculating, he's going to give you. Danny August Mason's interview is just point them here. Point them to this interview. Point them to the interview, guys. That's all. Maple syrup. That's right. All right. So, all right. Well, you pointed us to the interview. Fair enough. Let's watch this interview. Let's see how far I can get. Because I'm already got 47 minutes here. I don't know. Okay. This is like a 30-minute interview, and like I said, I could not find it. Thankfully, I found it. I found it somewhere, but it was not easy to find. If you just put in Ben Swan, Danny August Mason, boom, it used to come right up. Not the case anymore. This is 37 minutes. All right. Well, we'll see. See how far we can get. This is supposed to be an hour thing. I can already tell that's not going to happen. I'm going to give this a dislike here. I just put this up because I couldn't find it, and it needs to be out there. It's backed up offline, so we have it if anybody wants to just watch this. The Michael Boggio interview, the MEG Michael Entertainment interview that Dan Hannon did with Mike Boggio. I thought I had that by itself on this channel and on my other channels, and it's not there. So I'm going to add it. I'm going to make sure people have it. I'm going to add it to the podcast. If it's not in the podcast, I'm like, what the heck? Why have I not been adding this one too? So, anyways, enough of my ranting for now. We are going to let's look at the Ben Swan interview, 123:15.
Well, guys, I'm glad you're with me for this week's episode, and I got to tell you, it is a very heavy one. Very sad story to be talking about here. David Crowley is a name that many people don't necessarily know. He certainly wasn't a household name, but he was an absolutely inspirational person in the liberty movement. David is the creator, the writer, the director, the force behind a movie project called Gray State.
Since last night's declaration of martial law, soldiers are moving in to secure key areas.
Response to UN presence in Minneapolis.
Gray State was without question a brilliant project. It was something that I personally had supported, and the folks at Gray State, quite candidly, had supported me in my Kickstarter efforts and my efforts to go as an independent journalist. So certainly, full disclosure here, there's a lot of connection between me and this crew. David Crowley was the guy who put all of Gray State together, and this past weekend, tragically and very sadly, David was found dead inside of his home along with his wife and his daughter. Police, investigators originally on the scene ruled it a murder-suicide. Joining me now to talk about this is Danny Mason. Danny is an actor. He is part of the Gray State
But that's what I wanted to say. Sorry.
His wife and his daughter. Police, investigators originally on the scene ruled it a murder-suicide.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Police investigators originally on the scene ruled it a murder-suicide. Okay, now we know Catherine has talked about within four hours, there's a police officer saying this is a suspected murder-suicide. At least within 24 hours. The first press release is within 24 hours, and these are called suspicious deaths, right? So that was the very first press release, but within 24 hours, the police are saying that this is a double murder suicide and the public is not in any danger. Within 24 hours, they don't have. Let's think about that. So that's what you would want to know. Within 24 hours, the police that were on the scene, what could they have seen in those 24 hours that would lead them to think that David Crowley did this, that this was a double murder suicide? Let's look at what they did not have. They did not have the DNA results. They did not have the handwriting results, the ballistic results. They didn't have the actual autopsies. They didn't have David's phone, their phone records, their financial records, any of that. They haven't gone through, his posts. They haven't found a suicide note. They haven't found anything like that within 24 hours. But within 24 hours, they're already saying David did this. So it all comes back to what could they have possibly found? And we know what they've missed. I just mentioned some of the things that they missed. The other two things that they missed was two very important bullets. They left the house on January 17th, the day the bodies were found. They left the house, let's even say January 18th, okay? They left the house early that morning without very two important bullets. They left the house with 4 spent rounds. 4 spent rounds. One, including the one that goes into the basement, and including a bullet fragment, which I don't believe is, that I don't know. We can, maybe that's a fragment of one of those spent rounds. Maybe it's a fragment of, maybe it's not a fragment of those spent rounds that they found. But they didn't find 57. Item 57 is the bullet that went in to the attic. Correct. You're right. They didn't find item 57 until 1 month later. And then there's item 53 that they found 2 days after the bodies were taken from this home. So those are all the things that they didn't find. So it's always about, what did you guys find? And according to Zach Carter, this is, if anyone has any questions, this is good. Let's direct them here. He doesn't even say, hey, Danny's going to answer all that. Don't worry about it. We know what happened. It was sad. It's tragic. Thoughts and prayers. But here's why David is guilty. You get everything. You get the thoughts and prayers. It's tragic. You get the fake emotions, the rush to judgment, the speculation. You get all of that here, even though Zach is asking us not to speculate. That's all you get here. That's all you get. Iconic Meerkat says probably the jacket of the bullet. Yeah, so the bullet fragment, which I think is item 31, that bullet fragment that is found in the living room. Maybe that's exactly what it is the jacket of the bullet. So would that be the jacket of the bullet that goes into the basement? I think it's in the same area too. So that one makes sense because it doesn't hit any bodies. It hits that hardwood floor. So could the hardwood floor have knocked out that jacket or whatever? I don't know. I really don't know. And because it's not shell casings either, which is what it kind of looks like. Item 31. Maybe it's, think, oh, it's a shell casing. If it's a shell casing, it's not, that would really, that would lead down a whole nother area. So let me not get too far off on that. But you're totally right. It's like, I mean, I don't know. We just know these are all the things that they missed. So we all come back to, okay, what did you guys have in those 24 hours? Because if you're going to make that speculation, if you're going to speculate that David is guilty within 24 hours, all right, then what? Then you spend months and months to try to find the evidence of your speculation, of your theory, of your, quote, double murder suicide. So what do you find in those months? And we know what they find to prove David guilty. It's nothing. It's all about nothing. Seinfeld, George Costanza. It's about nothing. Let's go on.
Joining me now to talk about this is Danny Mason. Danny is an actor. He is part of the Gray State Project. He is also a creative partner in the project and a friend of David Crowley. And Danny, I'm glad that you're here with us. Talk about this is Danny Mason. Danny is an actor. He is part of the Gray State Project.
He's an actor. It's the first thing he says. He's an actor. He's part of the Gray State Project. And Dan, okay, yeah.
He's also a creative partner in the project and a
creative partner. A creative partner. I think he saw himself as an owner, a co-creator, right? I mean, if you look at the YouTube link, and when the video first came out, this was a creator, a co-creator,
and a friend of David Crowley. And Danny,
and a friend. So somebody left a comment. They watched the video yesterday. Iconic. Somebody left a comment about the body language, and you can learn a lot from Danny August Mason's body language. I totally agree.
I'm glad that you're here with us. I know it's been incredibly difficult for you and for...
Here it is another, it's been incredibly difficult for you and this and that. Wait a minute, forget all that. Who cares about him? Who cares about any of that? It's been incredibly difficult for anyone to prove David Crowley guilty. That's what has been incredibly difficult. On January 23rd, 2015, January 27th, 2015. They're making the media tours. I feel like people just aren't buying it. The media are just not buying it. And Iconic Meerkat says, seems he is pushing the Coco. Yeah, Coco this, right? Coco. Coco, beware. And beware you must. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what else to say on that. He's like,
The rest of
I'll
the folks
save that
associated
one.
with this project in what has to be a time when this news has been truly devastating. Catch us up.
Yeah, I don't think devastation really kind of describes.
Total devastation. Yeah, devastated. He looks devastated. He looks like he just woke up out of a haze, gray haze.
The feeling that we have of what kind of transpired with David and his family.
The feeling that we have of what kind of transpired with David and his family. Again, dancing around words. You're going to see that a lot here. A lot of dancing and romancing. Not a lot of truth, not a lot of facts, not a lot of, hey, this is why, David left a note. He did it. He filmed it. He sent somebody a message saying, hey, man, I really messed up. I just killed my family. We get none of that. There's no indication for these guys to go out there and do a tour, a media tour, saying that David Crowley is guilty. They're always very clear to make sure that people understand that part of it. Very clear. It's very interesting. And again, this is early. This is very early on. What do they really have by January 23rd?
When we got the news on Sunday afternoon, we almost, me and a group of friends, I got the phone call from one of my dear friends, Adam, and we were just in.
He's talking about Adam Schambauer right there. So he got the call from Adam Schambauer. Adam Schambauer, I believe, is one of the last people to try to contact David Crowley too. And I think he contacted him after his death. If Sophia was here, I'm sure she'd pull up her records and set me straight on that. But she's done a lot of great research on the phone records, which I have not. And also William Rail, and I think Catherine too. And I know Dan Hinnon, and there were several others who have really dug into those phone records. And thank you all for that.
In shock and disbelief.
Because it makes it easy for me to go and like check it out, right? Because you give me the sources, you give me the page, you give me the day, you give me the number, you give me all that stuff. Where if I want to, if I'm not lazy and I want to look into it for myself, I can.
About what actually transpired. It wasn't until probably yesterday.
What actually transpired?
When everything really kind of started sinking in.
So that would have been 122. At 122, everything is sinking in. On January 22nd, 2015, for this guy, everything is sinking in.
About what's really happened, because at that time it turned into.
So they know what really happened. By January 22nd, from what they're saying, they know what really happened. It's all good. Got it. Covered. Done. Magnifique.
To almost containing fires, with how the media starts spinning David's image.
So it's not about spinning David's death, it's spinning David's image. When they should be focused on, well, why would they? It makes no sense. His image and his death. So it's okay to say David Crowley killed a 5-year-old child, killed his wife, and then shot himself, as any coward would do. That's okay. But don't spin his image. It makes absolutely no sense to me there. The contradiction just right there is very, very baffling. I don't get it.
On the press on it as being kind of a gun enthusiast, right-wing.
Gun enthusiast, right-wing. Also note, I just want to let everybody know, for people who have not seen this, obviously when this first came out, this was a big topic, but if you have not seen this video, Count the times how many times Danny August Mason uses the phrase on it. Alright? I'm not saying do a drinking game while you're sitting at home and not driving and just sitting there and every time he says on it, take a little sip. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying um, count the times that he says on it during this.
Fanatic conspiracy theorists.
So a fanatic conspiracy theorist, blah blah blah. They're more focused on that. They're more focused on the image of David Crowley because the image of David Crowley affects them so much. It affects everything that they do, that they will do, all of their future plans. So you would think these guys would be front and center. These would be the first guys who would be out there saying, "Hey, before we jump the gun and just say David did this, let's really let's wait. Let's wait for the autopsies to come back. Let's wait for the toxicology to come back. Let's wait for the DNA results to come back, for his electronics to come back, for his financial records to come back, for his phone records to come back." You would think that these guys would be the first people out there saying, "Let's wait for that." And they're not. They're not waiting for that. Why do you think that is?
I bet who had PTSD that flew off the handles and murdered his wife and his daughter, and then
And he even has a hard time really saying the official. I mean, this is not somebody who is confident, who really, in my opinion, I don't believe Danny August Mason really believes the official theory. I think that's why he did reach out to me and Dan Hennon on the Facebook group, Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook, and challenged us to a debate. And then goes quiet, then goes dark, and that's it, right? He posted there. He was a part of the group. I think he left or something. I don't know. I'm not really sure. Maybe I just can't see him. But it was just like after that, he was pretty much gone. And I haven't heard from him since. But he has the open invitation. He's one of the people that I will debate whenever. We'll set it up and whatever you want to do. Yeah. It's open invite, open mic. Oh, that's interesting. So yet he says he last spoke to David 2 months after than he actually did. Oh, 2 months earlier. Sorry. Okay. He last spoke to David 2 months earlier than he actually did. Is what you meant to say. I got it. Okay. It actually, interesting. All right. Well, you're gonna have to help me with that. Dates and times are not my thing, but that's why I calculate them. That's why I write them down, so I can keep record of them for reasons like this. That's an interesting one. You'll have to point me in the right direction for that. I love it when I tell people, point me in the right direction. They point me back to a video I've done. Well, sorry. That's how it is, you know. We have so many great researchers out there, and it's just about getting
took his own life.
it's just about getting the data, making sure people have access to the data, and this has been a team effort, making sure that people understand that David Crowley is not guilty. Here we go.
On it, and
He
from
he did mention the PTSD thing. I just want to point that out too, because he did PTSD and all that stuff. Almost like he doesn't really believe the PTSD angle either. That's going to be a big, big thing. But he's got a lot to say. He's got more to say on the PTSD. Let's continue.
how the media was spinning it and how we know David personally. We knew that this situation, there's so many layers to it that it's going to take time to kind of unravel it. Because David,
There's so many layers to it. It's going to take time to unravel it. So it's like a connecting the dots. They're trying to connect dots that aren't really there. When if David had done this, and if they really thought this, if there was slam dunk evidence to show David did this, I mean, what, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, within 7 days, within a week of the death, they're like, yeah. But they're still trying to piece it all together. Some friends here.
was one of those very unique individuals that me and a lot of friends had the fortune of being able to be a part of his life. He was a private guy, but he was also very open. He was one of those uh, incredibly smart individuals that when he would process or have these ideas that they would be coming through him almost like 1,000 miles an hour, and you would have to keep up. But he would get really frustrated because he would have to end up like dumbing himself down to really explain what he's trying to get across on it.
So I guess we could on it. Did you hear that on it? So I guess we could interpret this as David's smarter than everybody, right? Well, that would make sense to me because these people that think David Crowley is guilty, they're dumb if they really think that. I mean, it's okay to whatever you want to believe if you think it, but if you're going to act like there is real proof out there that David did this, you are dumb. You just are. That's my view on it. You know, and people say, "Well, you're dumb because you think David didn't do this." I'm like, "Well, let's compare the evidence." That's why I was able to make a 2-minute video, a 3-minute video, put it on the back of my book that breaks it all down. It's not long and complicated. If you really want to get down to it, it's not very long or very complicated. I could break it down to you in 2 or 3 minutes. And I have several times, as you all know. So this is a 37-minute video, and we're kind of hoping for that, right? This is what we're expecting, is he's going to tell us, don't worry about the speculation, but, this is what happened. So let's continue on with Danny August Mason speculating and Zach Carter supporting the speculation.
I say that in the context because a lot of people like that are insanely self-motivated, and especially artistically, and it's a really kind of hard level to balance when you're dealing with a regular society in general, and especially in the magnitude that with the success of just a simple concept trailer of Gray State and the topics, because they're such intense debated topics that a lot of people from activists to conspiracy theorists kind of latch onto. They use it very much of a visual form for a spearhead for their ideology with it. So with that being said, with David around...
he almost said on it, but instead he said with it. Sorry.
His family, he was such a softie, and
So around his family, he's a softie, and then he brutally murders them all, shoots his wife twice. Got it. As Eric Wilkinson would say. Go ahead.
And when I say that, I mean when he was around his family, he was so loving, and he was so caring, and
he was so loving around his family, so caring around his family, and then he kills them all. Makes sense. Right?
So in love with his wife, and he loved his kid.
He was so in love with her, so in love with both of them that he's going to shoot him in the head to make sure they die instantly. Very loving. That's the most loving thing, I think, right?
And being a part of that, and whenever I would be over there, me and my other friends, Adam and Mason and Sean, we were...
He and Adam and Mason and Sean. Mason Hendricks, Adam Schambauer, Mason Hendricks, Sean Wright. That's who he's talking about here. Even though he and Sean Wright and Mason Hendricks are going to have a big falling out later on, when I'm chatting with Mason Hendricks, maybe about a year or so later than this, and Mason Hendricks is, saying if Danny Mason keeps it up, Mason Hendricks will deliver Danny Mason's head on a platter to me. To me. That's what Mason Hendricks said to me. Mr. Mason Hendricks, who doesn't like to be quoted, by the way.
We knew that we were fortunate enough to actually see that. So
now, Danny, let me ask this, because I know that David obviously served in Iraq. He was an Iraq War veteran. Immediately, of course, media turns to the idea that this is an episode of PTSD, and that becomes kind of the blame for all of this. To the best...
This is good stuff. I'll try to shut my mouth during this part, because this is the PTSD stuff. So whenever you hear about David had PTSD, he might have had PTSD. Remember, there are real people out there that have PTSD. A lot of people who have it um, may not say anything, and maybe a lot of people who have it are very vocal about it. But ask those people, ask a person who has it or who believes that they have it. What is it like when people are accusing other people of having it? How do they respond to that? How do they like that? Do you think that that's cool? For me, if I were to just say, hey, this person has PTSD when I've never had it and I've never gone through what that person had, I would ask a person who has had PTSD or has it, how would you react? How would you respond to somebody like that, to somebody who is so quick to accuse somebody else of having PTSD? Or even, it just seems like, I guess what I'm really trying to say is there are people out there who really have PTSD, and we should not just label PTSD because we want to label them like that, to think that they're crazy or to think that, well, this is to justify their actions or to justify anything. So I'm never, ever quick to say people have PTSD or that they don't. Okay? If they say it, if they joke about it, like David did in his journal, um, then that's on them, right? But I'm not going to say, well, I'm not going to associate that with what they did or what they didn't do. But I will tell you this, most PTSD cases that I've looked into myself, maybe there's others that are different, but they usually kill themselves. They don't really necessarily kill everybody. And a lot of the stuff, to me, I would ask somebody with PTSD, does this line up? Does this murder, what they say, happen here? Look at the crime scenes. Look at what happened. Look at all the stuff. Look at the crime photos, I guess. Does it line up with PTSD? That's what I would basically ask and see. And if it doesn't, then, have to go with that. Yeah, here comes the PTSD excuse. All right, let's continue.
Best of your knowledge, and I know it's difficult to speculate on this, but to the best of your knowledge, had David exhibited any symptoms or signs of PTSD in the years that you've known him?
Nothing that would, I guess, constructively fit the bill for a diagnosis of PTSD. Not in the form of David, and that could have been masked with his creativity on it. Hindsight's always 20/20, and especially in a moment like this. And I think to label that right away that this was the sole cause of it, I don't personally. I know that I'm.
Just want to pause. This is the sole cause of it. He's not discounting the possibility of PTSD. He's just saying it's not the sole cause, is what it sounds like.
He mentioned that he did suffer from some forms of PTSD, and I think that all of us, in some shape or form, could actually, I guess, in some form of diagnosis, have that. Obviously more extent than others, but nothing to the extent that immediately, oh, this is, it's black and white. He flipped out and kind of lost his mind. It's just
that's kind of the problem right there, because what he says right there is exactly what they will say later. That's what the police will say, is that David Crowley flipped out and did this and killed him. That's what he's going to say later on. Very interesting.
diagnosis to explain the tragic events just doesn't fit with it. There's much more stuff that I guess we can only assume leading up to it, to the tragic event. And like I said, that's going to take time because we're getting little bits here, little bits there from other people that he communicated with. That's beginning to kind of allow us to get the bigger picture of what actually transpired.
When you say little bits, are you able to tell me what some of those little bits are?
Yeah, little bits are kind of more communication with David's family on it, and how he was communicating with his family on it, with things going on to it. Because David, when he would go into a very creative mode, he would kind of, I guess, go off the radar for a couple of weeks, and this is very kind of normal for him. And then he would just reemerge with these ideas, this new plan, new direction where you want to take things, or he might even have a completely different idea for a project. He just needed to get out of his head. And so for him to do that, his family was used to that. And me as being a creative partner with him and also a friend and a business associate, that was, you know, familiar with it. It wasn't anything. There wasn't really any kind of red flags that kind of went off that we should be really concerned about. It was just the more lapse of time that was going by and we weren't hearing from him. That's when me, as a collective friend, started getting a little bit more concerned. Something wasn't feeling right with us, and we started reaching out to each other. And it was at a point where we were going to go over to his place, kind of unannounced, just to check in on him and whatnot. But I mean, like I said, hindsight, you can't really predict. This sort of thing would have transpired like it did.
Yeah.
So Danny, you'll have to forgive my ignorance on this. My
Yeah.
understanding, and I could be a little bit off here, but my understanding is that when people suffer from PTSD, especially veterans when they come back, typically when symptoms of PTSD come up, they seem to cycle somewhat, and there are typically triggers associated with that. Just wondering if anyone had noticed anything that would indicate there was a PTSD trigger that was going off. I know that David was in a pretty exciting place in terms of the Gray State Project, and I don't know how much you can speak to that. I know we're being sensitive to that, but what can you say about that, where he was in this place and where the project was?
I'm only going to be able to comment a little bit on things we're getting really excited for him, for the amount of, because I guess he's taken the burden as being such a creative guy. He's also I don't want to say controlling, but his vision is so cut that he likes to have his hands in everything just to make sure he gets it done. So it's his structure is very militant on it. And this could have possibly been years of building up on it. I know one of the biggest things that he had to grapple with, and we discussed many of times kind of when we were creating the universe of Gray State, and like the major themes that we were playing with, was that we had a huge responsibility to present it in a manner that it wouldn't become a tool for some radical person to use it for justification on a tragedy or some point of violence with it. And that weighed heavy on his conscience. I know that, and it does with mine still to this day, and it will continue if in what will transpire with Gray State. And I know he dabbled with that, and he always never felt comfortable or felt good about the formation of the story that he was trying to tell. It was never good enough. There's always a lot of holes with it. But I know that he felt like he needed to carry the world and that burden on his shoulders, because people, when we started going, when he went to like a Bilderberg rally, and also
Hey, Jet, thanks for joining us here. To answer your question, when was this interview originally done? This was most likely done on January 23rd, 2015. The bodies were found on January 17th, 2015. So about 1 week after. Hope that helps. That was my first question, too. When I found this the other day. It's like, when was this first conducted?
also the RNC, he became a symbol for hope and inspiration for a lot of people, and that can weigh a lot of pressure on an individual who's not used to being thrust into a public eye right away, or into that kind of statute. So I know that was a lot of things going through his head, and he would wrestle with those themes a lot. But I know he had the ability to channel that fear and those insecurities into his characters of Gray State, with the direction of the script that he felt the most comfortable with on that. And I support him with it, because the characters that we came up with were a lot of the original ones, but he was going more daring with the subtext and the themes with it, which I supported. I thought it was great. That's why I was so passionate working with him, because he just did not want to make, like,
Just another film.
Yeah, just another film, but also like the themes in general, that kind of what we're dealing with. There's not a lot of filmmakers at that time. I mean, when we were coming up with the concept, and you have to understand, this was years before Occupy, or even a year before Occupy Wall Street. This was years even before Ferguson situation and what's going on with that whole entire thing, and just where the state of the country's at right now. And that's why people looked at David as the kind of like almost prophet figure on that point. And that's a lot of
that he had foresight into a lot of this.
yeah, I mean, we would sit, and what the thing that forged our friendship and our bond was that I'm a lover of history, and ancient history, and also American history. And I told him, and him being a combat vet, and I'm not a combat vet, we would have discussions about what would actually take place if there would be a second Civil War, a second American Revolution. What would it take place with advances of technology, and also, but on the higher powers, the controlling factors with that, and how would that take place on, you know, with that direction, and that really forged in the beginning process of what the Gray State is. And even then, back then, this is like 4 or 5 years ago, we knew we're playing with something we fully didn't understand. We fully didn't understand when we were shooting it. We fully didn't understand even like a year or two after the release of the trailer. We kind of really got a big glimpse when we went to Boston after it was 3 days after the Boston bombing. We were working with Oath Keepers and shooting some footage for the.
This is key here, the Boston bombing thing. Some interesting things. Obviously, we know David was there filming, etc., etc. David's uncle was a police officer. John Bergeron, I think was his name. But he was a police officer, and I forget what state, but it was David's uncle, and he actually got shot in the line of duty. He died. He got murdered in the line of duty. And the witness, the witness who saw the person that shot this police officer was a jogger, an older gentleman, one of the joggers, and this is I do believe in coincidences, people, and this is one of those. He was the witness to David's uncle's death, murder, a police officer being murdered in the line of duty. The witness was a runner. He was a runner at the Boston bombing. Now, there's also questions about the Boston bombing, who really did it. I have a chapter completely done for one of my future books, Shadows and Light. Kripperick has the only copy of the old version, which was called New World Odor. And I kind of try to break down the whole Boston bombing thing as we knew it back then, the things that were happening, the strange things that were happening, some of the suspicious deaths surrounding that case too, and everything. So I'm sure these guys were on top of all that stuff. But then they're not looking into their own friend, you know. So they're out there. They spend all this time covering the Boston bombing. They leave their state, their home state, to go and cover this Boston bombing. But when it comes to the death of their friend, how much effort, how much time do they put into this? I don't believe it's very, very much. And if it is, then that's very shameful, because we've been able to look at these documents, to look at these facts and say the police have not proven David Crowley did any of this. Danny August Mason should see that. Mason Hendricks should see that. Sean Wright, all these guys should see that too. It's right there, right in front of all of our faces.
Gray State, The Rise documentary, where it really hit home what we were actually playing with and how much people invested and looked for it as a representation of their belief system on, like I said, in a medium form. And that's a lot of weight. And then you compound that stress of what David was trying to spearhead, taking this idea that's never been done and presenting it in a Hollywood fashion on top of that, and dealing with a lot of people who would, like to get their hands on it and influence it and also take it somewhere. Or David's worst fear was just going to that process, maybe potentially shooting the film, and then it just being in a nice little package sitting on a shelf, and that's it. And then he would let down, the hordes of fans to put us in the position that where David's at. And I've been lucky and fortunate enough to be a part of that.
I mean, let me ask you about the investigation here. And again, I don't know how much you can say about it. We mentioned before that The initial reports here was that it was a murder-suicide. I have reports that some investigators may be calling this.
This is this is interesting because now we're getting into the investigation. You can look. So now we're gonna get into it, right? About halfway through, yeah, we're gonna start talking about start talking about the real deal here. So this is pretty interesting. I just want to note here one thing I wanted to mention earlier that I forgot. Look at where Ben Swan is. So if you've ever seen a Ben Swan interview or what Ben Swan does, this just seems very different. He's out in the weeds here. He's literally in the weeds. He's not seeing the forest before the trees, but it's just interesting. He's on this hillside here and conducting this interview. I don't know. I always found that interesting. Okay, let's go on.
Suspicious at this point. That may just be, people hoping that it's suspicious. But I'm hearing that it may be suspicious, and I also have heard that there is reports of a sliding door that was.
I want to go back just a little bit, the suspicious thing, because that's what the first press release said. The first press release on this case, and I don't know if I can bring that up or not quickly, but said that they labeled this as quote unquote suspicious deaths. So I don't know if I don't have those 5 press releases in just one PDF to make it easy for people. Okay, I don't have it. I'm gonna definitely add that. I'm gonna add that to my list because people need to see that, to see the 5 press releases. Okay, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on it just because I don't have it in front of me. But I'm noting it. Here we go.
And I also have heard that there is reports of a sliding door that was left unlocked. I don't know how much you can say about the investigation. I know you're following it.
Look at that. Danny August Mason's face when the sliding door is mentioned. This was a key thing. There was a guy in the group, early in the group, Pascal, I think. I forget his name, but I did credit him in the video that I made that took his audio that he found on the police scanner. So he found the scanner footage, the scanner audio. That was the very first episode the very first video that I did on this called Gray Stage, the Gray Stage series. The very first video is just that 5-minute recording, and it is literally the police going into the house, going up to the house, going into the house, etc., what they do, right? So Ken was able to find this video. I don't know how he found it. He posted it in the group. I made sure to back it up because it mentioned the rear slider. The rear slider here was probably another thing that they were hoping would not be focused on, would not be mentioned. So when you look at Danny August Mason's face, and Ben Swan is bringing it up, the rear slider, because it is a big part of this case. If they're going to say there was no forced entry or anything like that, why is the rear slider open here? It doesn't mean that there was anything, but it's like you can't have it both ways. You can't say that, well, we didn't find any signs of forced entry, and then at the same time recognize or focus on the rear slider was open. So there wouldn't need to be any forced entry, right? It's just very, very interesting. I'm going to go back a little bit.
And I also have heard that there is reports of a sliding door that was left unlocked. I don't know how much you can say about the investigation. I know you're following it closely. What can you tell us about that?
The only thing
This is the thing. I don't know how much you can say about the investigation. Are they part of the investigation? Are the police telling them not to say things about the investigation? Obviously, Ben Swan doesn't know. He's just asking, what can you guys say? I can tell you that they were telling us that David did this, and then they were also telling us that they couldn't talk about what proves that he did it. And here we are 7 years later, and these idiots still cannot prove David did anything. They still have not provided any evidence that shows David Crowley killed his wife, his daughter, and himself. What evidence could they show you? If the police don't have the evidence, do you think these other ass clowns do? They're lying. They're lying. They don't have the evidence. They know they don't have the evidence. They know they're not under oath or anything like that, and they can say whatever they want because some losers will take them seriously for whatever reasons, but whatever you want to think is true, and that's fine, but make sure it's based on facts, not feelings.
I can confirm on right now is obviously the investigation's ongoing. I haven't seen the reports
The
about.
investigate. I mean, this is what the police were telling us, and he's saying the same time. The investigation is ongoing. That's what Sean Wright was basically saying. He couldn't tell us things. He's not even supposed to know anything. Why is Sean Wright, what is he communicating with the police? How often is Sean Wright communicating with the police? And if Sean Wright is communicating with the police, why is he not, why is there no police report the same way that you see with Danny August Mason? You see Sean Wright's name mentioned in those 94 pages, but that's really it. But yet these are the guys that are going out there and telling us that David did this. They have the evidence. They don't have the evidence. Some of these guys told us there was a hand in the basement. There's no hand in the basement. I mean, some of the things that they told us, I don't know why they would tell us these things. It did not seem like something that a sincere person would do, but they did it. It's interesting. Just go a few. I think we're gonna have to break this one up into two pieces. We'll go a few more minutes here.
About it being suspicious on it. Until we get the full amounts, the full actual report from the police and what they've come to it, I haven't really, and from what we're getting from, like I said, from communication with the family and from some other individuals I'm not going to name, who are kind of coming forth with their own story, I'm just gonna probably just stick to it as what the examiner said, as it being a
Murder-suicide.
suicide at this point.
That's interesting because the medical examiner doesn't really say that, right? How is a medical examiner going to prove any of it? I don't know. It's really interesting. So he's just going to go with that. Just going to go with what they say. Nice friend, right? That's the type of friend you need in your life. Yeah, Jet, it is very interesting, and unfortunately, I have to shut this down. But on my channel, Jet, if you want to watch just the whole interview of just Danny August Mason, I do have that up there. And I'll come back maybe tomorrow around the same time and probably do a part 2 to this. But God bless you all, and I just want to thank you all for for joining here. And I will definitely be back either maybe tonight, but most likely tomorrow around the same time. All right, everyone. Talk to you soon. All right, and welcome back. We are now going to go through part 2. We did not finish part 1 of looking at Danny August Mason's interview from January 23rd, 2015. This may be the first and the last interview Danny August Mason did, and there's probably some good reasons. So if you've seen the first part, we covered about 15 minutes. Catherine is joining us here as well. Hey, Catherine.
Hey,
Always
Fred.
good to see you. And we'll spend as much time as we have here with the time that we have here. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do a screen share, and we're just going to continue on. Catherine, if at any time you want me to pause or stop, I know I specifically, since you said you were going to come on, I specifically put it on this part to make sure I didn't get this wrong with the medical examiner. So I'll play what Danny August Mason says, and then we will go from there. So I'm transitioning. Hopefully everybody can see the wonderful Danny August Mason here, as long as you do on camera. Then what I will do is I will maximize this. This is about 1523 here, so I want to get your thoughts on this, Catherine. Here we go. I want to say hi to Ellie. Hey, Ellie, thank you for joining us in the chat. Always nice to have you here. Nice to see you. And Ellie, if you do want to jump on, let me know. You're always welcome to jump on. So here we go.
Haven't really, and from what we're getting from, like I said, from communication with the family and from some other individuals I'm not going to name, who are kind of coming forth with their own story, I'm just going to probably just stick to it as what the examiner said, as it being a
Murder suicide.
suicide at this point right now.
Danny, let
So that's what I wanted to just pause it there for a second, Catherine,
Okay.
and go back to, because if you notice what he's saying, he's just going to stick to what the medical examiner says. At this point, what has the medical examiner really said? Okay, we're January 23rd. We know, I don't remember when exactly the final report came out, but does the medical examiner say that this was the result of a double murder suicide?
And I was just going to go try to pull it up real quick and see when those reports were done. I don't know if they found it out that quickly because they would have to wait for the toxicology reports. But what I find interesting is he's like, oh, well, some stories that some people are making up, that type of thing. Well, everybody kind of has their own thoughts. So really? And then he's like, well, then I'll stick with what the medical examiner has to say. Well, let me see if you even know if I'm pulling it up right now to see when they were signed.
To see what the medical examiner, what the date. I think there's several dates, but I don't believe it was by January 23rd.
No, they signed them on, Jessica signed hers on February 23rd, and then Dr. Maury signed his portion on March 22nd. So this probably didn't even become available or, to anyone until after that date, because they have to wait for the toxicology reports before they can even come up with anything.
Would they have been given maybe the family and friends a little heads up about, hey, this is what we found? We think the medical examiner saying, I think this is a double murder suicide. I don't see anything where the medical examiner disputes it, but does the medical examiner ever come out and say this is?
Well, I think they put on David's. I think they did list it as suicide on his cause of death.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that they listed it as suicide. Because they're saying that on David's autopsy, they're saying that he shot his wife and his daughter and then shot himself. And I'm like, how do you know that? You weren't there. And it's like, oh, but whether or not, could the medical examiner have been saying something to the family? Yeah, but I don't think 5 days after the bodies were found.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
When all these guys are out there doing this, what we call the this tour, this world tour, where they're going out and pretty much saying that David did this. We need to not question it. And you can even see Danny August Mason kind of hints towards some of that. I'm not going to listen to what other people are saying who have their own thoughts and their own views on it. It's like, well, I thought we all had our own thoughts and views on it, but I would have really thought these guys would be the first people out there saying, look, there may be something weird. It's just very odd that they are the first people out here saying this is what happened. David Crowley is guilty. That's what they're basically saying. Within 24 hours, within a couple of days, they're out there not only saying it to other people, they're trying to convince everyone else of the same thing, and then getting pretty angry when people question them on it.
And that is such a huge red flag. Everyone jumped on the bandwagon without any proof whatsoever. And by that point, no one had read the autopsy report. Nobody really saw what the ME did or did not do. And the fact that the skull piece, the ME didn't even mention that skull piece. And it is clear as day there, we've been over this a bazillion times, that there are straight lines and you see imprint marks. She doesn't even talk about that. The only thing she says is that it articulates well with the remaining portion of his skull. But they don't even know that at this point. And then to, like you said, constantly push the narrative. Oh yeah, he did this. And they're saying this, and other people might have other ideas, but I'm going to stick with what they're saying, when you've never even read the reports. And then, like you said, get angry, downright angry and violent at anybody who says, no, wait a second, we want to question this. So now I'm going, why are you angry? Because people are standing up for your friend. Right. Shouldn't you be standing up for your friend? Shouldn't you be going, hey, wait a minute, yeah, we kind of had some disagreements, but I knew him. I knew how he was with his wife. But no, instead they're like, well, we don't know why he did it, and we don't see how he could have done it. But okay, if they say that, then damn it, this is the way it's going to be. And it's,
Right.
oh, holy crap.
Well, I mean, the thing is, we get to see something directly from the journal where, you know, you can see David is he's not a big fan of Danny August Mason.
Right.
And that's first and foremost here. And I'm pretty sure Danny August Mason, because it's pretty apparent they knew about the deal, at least to some extent, that they felt like they were cheated and they felt David was in the wrong for this. I mean, that's pretty clear. And it's kind of frustrating because it's, you know, that, like you were saying, they've thrown up all these red flags throughout this entire case, you know, especially since the beginning. But the thing is, the reason why they're throwing up these red flags so early is because they're really not David's friends.
How dare you say that?
Right?
Let's see.
Well, Judy was all of our friends too, right?
We were at one point. We were, yeah, social gatherers. Star here says, brings up a great point. When Danny is asked about the rear slider unlocked, Danny's reaction told us what we needed to know. It really did. And this was I remember, I wish I knew who it was, but this person contacted me. It was like, you have to listen, you have to watch this. You have to watch this. It is very, very strange. And that's why it was kind of like for years I wanted to make sure people had access to this and not really give too much of my commentary and thoughts on it, because when I watched it, I mean, especially at that point, and it would be great to have a body language expert or something actually watch this video in real time and maybe get some really good thoughts on it, because when Danny August Mason mentions that or when the slider gets brought up, and I don't know if that was supposed to be brought up, to be honest with you. I don't know if Danny August Mason knew what the questions he was going to be asked or not. But yeah, you can clearly see he's a bit frustrated when that comment is brought up.
Did you show the part about the slider? Was that last week's?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
actually just a few minutes before. If you want me to go back, I don't know if you've seen it or not,
I
but if you
haven't
want me to
seen
go
that part
back,
yet.
I haven't
okay,
seen it in a while.
okay, I could try to go back and we can go over that a little bit here. So let's see. It's probably still
Yes, it was.
sharing. It was an oops moment. Whoops! I did it again. Brittany. It's Brittany Biatch. Okay. Let's see. Let me go back. Yeah, it's like I could probably already find it here too. I forget if someone knows when it was.
Say
But
about it. We mentioned before that the initial reports here was that it was a murder-suicide. I have reports that some investigators may be calling this suspicious at this point.
that's interesting
that
too.
may just be, you know, people hoping that it's suspicious. But I'm hearing that it may be suspicious, and I also have heard that there is reports of a sliding door that was left unlocked. I don't know how much you can say about the investigation. I know you're following it closely.
That's the face right there.
He's like,
That's
oh,
the
crap.
face right there. Yeah. This is what they did not want. This was so awesome when we first got, really when Dan first created the Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook group. One of the very first posts, I think, was somebody posted the actual 911, not 911, but this is the police talking back and forth, and this is when the rear slider is actually mentioned. One of the only mentions of it, that rear slider, and so that became one of the biggest talking points, especially for people that were like, maybe there is something weird going on here. That rear slider was one of the main things, and you can clearly see why. But
Well, yeah, because if it comes out right away, like this soon, that the rear slider was opened and unlocked, right away, that should tell people that there's a possibility that there was someone else involved.
right.
Right, yeah, is who leaves their back door unlocked or and open like that, especially in the winter. Doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Let's hear what his answer is about the rear slider.
Closely. What can you tell us about that?
The only thing I can confirm on right now is obviously the investigation's ongoing. I haven't seen the reports about it being suspicious on it. Until we get the full amounts, the full actual report from the police and what they've come to it, I'm and I haven't really, and from what we're getting from, like I said, from communication with the family and from some other individuals I'm not going to name, who are kind of coming forth with their own story, I'm just going to probably just stick to it as what the examiner said, as it being a
Murder-suicide.
suicide at this point right now.
Danny,
Oh, holy crap.
Oh my God.
Oh, holy crap.
What do you think?
Oh, no,
Well, I mean, look at the basics there. I mean, somebody usually their eyes are darting back and forth, left to right, and especially when there's a focus on one specific side.
Yeah.
He's trying to come up with a story on the spot, but usually when that's the case, especially lean towards a specific side, it usually means lying.
well, and you know, that can be true, but that can also not be true. But when you put that together with his and on and I'm
Yep.
going to be here
So
and
it's on it. On it is the
yes,
key. On it.
yeah, and where he goes from, okay, now, oh crap, what do I say? And you know, well, oh my God, okay, holy, that's all I can say is holy crap. This
Hand on
is,
the mouth.
like William was saying, this right here, his body language, how he's saying it, how he's responding, there are red flags everywhere. So
Everywhere, yeah.
why did the police then not question him? And again, I'm not saying he's guilty, but I'm saying he is behaving in a way that is not consistent with someone who does not have knowledge.
Right.
Yeah. It would be good to go back and look at the date that the police did talk to him, how far out it was. I think they probably talked to him first, and then he did this, and then
But
he
the
went.
little bit that they talked to him, that's not an interrogation. They should have brought it in. And interrogation kind of sounds rude or like really intense, and sometimes they are. But other times you have to interrogate someone to rule them out as well. They only went and talked to him and chatted with them a little bit. And this is where he's like, they start passing the cops off onto each other. I think Danny says, did you talk to Mitch? And then, you know, and then and oh, did you talk to Chris? And oh, Chris, like, oh, did you talk to so-and-so? So they're constantly sending them in this huge loop. And never really were they brought in and questioned.
Yeah. I mean, especially after Danny Mason says he was just a quote unquote actor. That's it. And even this Ben Swan, when this first came out, the URL lists Danny August Mason as a co-creator.
Right.
That's in the actual URL, which is taken down now. You can't find this anywhere else, maybe. So I don't know, but it's pretty interesting. I don't know what happened with Ben Swan. His whole website, I don't know. I haven't really looked too much into that, but it's pretty interesting stuff.
Well, what's more is you can always you can take a look at this guy on YouTube, Enigma. That's all he really does is body language. There was another one that used to be on YouTube as well, but she's not up anymore. But she was really good too. I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but Enigma might be one to go and worthwhile, getting in on this.
Interesting. Yeah. How do we do that? Maybe you can help us send it over them.
Yeah, I mean they're just on YouTube, so you could probably hit them up through there. I think they accept the business inquiries, right?
Oh, business inquiries. Okay.
You know, like Elle was just saying, it's a cluster of deception. So it's not just one thing, because if one person, if they're being interviewed or talked to, and yes, they can look up, because oftentimes when you recall, you'll look to the right or to the left, and it's just recalling memory. But it's everything. It's the fidgety. It's the
right.
And this and this and then the too much information, giving too much detail. Then wait a second, in detail that really doesn't matter. You know, like who cares what other people are saying? The question is what about the rear slider? He talks about everything but the rear slider.
Right.
So there are a lot of things in there that are red flags.
Right.
Yeah, if I could ask Ben Swan anything, it would be like, did you let him know you're going to talk about the rear slider? Because that is one of the most deer in the headlights moments I've ever seen. And it's pretty interesting because I don't think Danny August Mason does any interview, face or video interviews after this. Maybe he did. I haven't seen any. I think they were like, he was going to be out there front and center and trying to convince people. And if this actor can't do it, then who could possibly do it? So for me, it kind of opened up that door. Like, wow, this guy is an actor. He's stuttering more than I stutter on my worst days, and he shouldn't have to, because all he has to do is tell the truth. Now, it's understandable that there are things that he can't talk about or anything like that. Then don't even do this. Don't be out there. Don't try to do a damage control video, a propaganda piece, and then all that you're doing is raising more questions. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have contacted me or have watched what we just saw there and like, dude, there's definitely something here. Like if I didn't think there was some quote unquote suspicious activity after watching this, people are just like, what is he doing? What is going on here? Because these guys seem to be, or they try to be so articulate with other issues with Boston bombing and things like that. They have no issues with that, right? It's okay to talk about the whole Boston bombing people. We're not going to worry about their family or their friends or anything like that. We're not going to respect people in these other cases. But when it comes to this case, then all of a sudden they all change. And now all of a sudden we're supposed to be respectful. All of a sudden now we're supposed to wait until the police finish their investigation, which
Right.
we always planned on doing. But these are not guys that waited for these investigations to be finished. These were guys that were telling us all that what they do is they go out there and pretty much see the other side of it. That's what the Gray State was. That's what the Gray State trailer, that's what a lot of things they were working on. That's what it was all doing. It was showing us the other side. And
Yeah,
here they are selling out.
And they had no problem telling everybody from the get-go that, yes, David did this. Oh, and we're so sad. We can't believe that he killed his wife and his child and then he killed himself. But the moment you and Dan come forward and say, hey, wait a second, we're gonna question this. Oh, no, you guys, you don't have a right to say anything. You don't know anything. You don't have the police reports.
Right.
Well, why is it okay to slam David, but it's not okay to say, hey, wait a minute, let's kind of question this narrative for a second, because we don't have that information. We don't have that proof that he's guilty. But yet that was never okay. It's never been okay to say David is innocent. But the moment you say that he's a murderer, everybody on that side is your best friend.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, I just saw a comment go by with, I think it was Star, says something about he should have been on a lie detector. Personally, I'm not a big fan of lie detectors. Those things can be fooled. People can look like they're lying when they're not actually lying. I mean, they're not even really, from what I understood, they're not even admissible in court. They're not something that's going to be, that's something that can be heavily scrutinized real quick. So.
Oh, I knew somebody who had to have consistently have to go in for a test, a lie detector test, and they fooled it every single time by putting a rock in their shoe. Because if you do that, what it does is it makes your nerves react a certain way. And I'm not quite sure how it exactly works, but they knew with the test lie question, or a test truth question, that they would do that, so then it would register. They fooled it every time, lied to the police and fooled it every time.
Right.
Yeah. Fooled the test, but maybe not the people who were conducting the test.
They believed it too, because they're reading the test. They're reading how the thing, so they fooled everybody. They lied their butts off the entire time, was doing exactly what they weren't supposed to be doing, but because they were able to put that little thing in their shoe, and again, I'm not sure exactly how it works, but they put a rock in their shoe. And yeah, they lied and got through and passed it, even though they were
100%.
breaking their probation the entire time.
Sure. But it's still possible to pass it, and still, you can still, as an investigator who's just watching it or rewatching it later, you can use that. You can use it to even trip people up later on too. There's some value to it, I would think. But
I don't know. I'm with.
I don't know. I've never taken one myself, but I that's pretty much what I growing up. What I heard is all the different ways to beat them, to fake it.
There are lots of ways to beat them, and there are people out there who are so good at lying that you just don't know. You have to really catch them on something else and go, "Wow, okay."
Yeah, but after watching what we just saw with Danny August Mason,
he's not good. He's not.
I don't know how good he would be.
Like Dan is a liar. I'm sure of it, and I agree with you, Ellie.
Well, the one thing, like with those types of people, that they can lie that well. They can literally trick their body into basically acting in specific ways, so it's able to go right past the lie detector. They're able to go and keep certain kind of tone, facial expression. They're able to basically fool them, almost like fooling their body into believing the lie, but knowing full well it's a lie. You can always do simple things like, if they're not really sure of something, but that if they knew as much as they did, you can always throw some stuff out there, and this could be things that are just totally like, for the most part, they would have been in the know for somebody. And if they're answering like, they know, they're like, oh, this didn't happen. This isn't what happened here. You can start catching them on there. Like, well, if you were there, then here you go. Well, that means you're lying right here. So
Yeah,
you can kind of trick them.
Right, and I agree. Someone just said that and like Greg, you were saying too, Danny is just not that good of an actor. I don't think he could have passed it. However, William is so right. I know someone else who they were taking a lie detector test to get a government job, and I won't tell you what kind of government job. But one of the test questions was, to see how you react when you're telling a lie. And one of the test questions was, is the wall black? And it was a white wall. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, they totally passed it. They're looking at a white wall going, yeah, the wall's black. And they're just like, oh, crap. So they just stopped it. They're like, we can't use a lie detector test on you. So it just depends on who you are. But I agree, Danny probably would have failed it miserably.
Right. But he is a terrible actor, and that's what terrible actors do.
How dare you? How dare you defame the acting skills of a future Oscar, Emmy Award winner, Danny August Mason. I think I'm his only fan. I'm your biggest fan, Danny. All right, here we go.
This guy's a fan.
I don't know, man. It seems like there is I don't know if anyone has ever seen, it's like a 2-minute video. It may still be up on the Gray State channel. And they're basically just kissing Ben Swan's butt. It's basically that. It's like a 2-minute video with Danny August Mason. He's in character and just letting us know how great Ben Swan is. And I thought after this, it's like Ben Swan, a lot of weird things happen to Ben Swan after this, actually. But I don't know. Didn't really hear him say too much about David. I always felt like Ben Swan was more of an old school journalist. And I felt he just this proved to me like he's, bringing up certain things that he brings up. I don't like how it felt like he was kind of coaching Danny August, not coaching him, but kind of finishing his sentence as we just heard.
It's not compatible.
It's just like, well, Danny Mason was kind of stumbling through it, and as someone, obviously Ben Swan wants, he's got the show that he's doing here, so he wants to kind of keep that flow going. So that's what great hosts do too. So it could just be that.
Right.
All right, let's continue on.
Let me ask you about this, because there is a report that's out now from, I believe it's Canada Free Press. And an interviewer who had Danny on a show says that, and this was back in 2012, so it was a little while ago, but says he had Danny on the show and he was talking to him pre-interview. And in that pre-interview conversation, he jokingly said something about, Danny, I hope you don't have any thoughts of suicide. And he was joking about it in reference to Andrew Breitbart dying and Michael Hastings dying, and just saying off the cuff, I hope you're not killed over this project. And he says that David had responded to him and said that no, he had no feelings of suicide and he had no suicidal thoughts. And so they had talked about this prior to the interview. I'm just wondering if you've seen that report and if you can comment on that at all.
That I can't.
See, even there, he doesn't seem as agitated when the rear slider comes up, and though he should be, I think. Let me go back.
Yeah, if you go back a little bit, you can see that his face. He's kind of looking around. He's kind of like shaking his head a little bit.
Who's he looking at here? I think there was somebody else here, and when I first watched this, it looked like there is somebody else here. He's not the only one here. Somebody else, and probably multiple people, maybe coaching him or helping him, et cetera, et cetera. Right. I've had the same feeling when I talked with some of these Gray State goons. I had the exact same feeling that I wasn't just talking with them. I was talking with several people.
Right.
This is how they roll.
Absolutely.
No, he had no feelings of suicide and he had no suicidal thoughts. And so they had talked about this prior.
Right there. No feelings and no suicide. Like, what? Wow. Oh, he doesn't really know what.
Crap.
They thought they scrubbed all those, but apparently they missed one or two.
Prior to the interview. I'm just wondering if you've seen that report and if you can comment on that at all.
That I can't comment because I don't know, and I don't totally, I'm not familiar with the interview on it, so I won't be able to comment on.
That would be news to you. You weren't familiar with that conversation prior to.
I'm not. No.
Breaking. No, he knows about it. You
You
just
know,
can't
it's funny
comment
because he
on
even calls him out on it.
it. He can comment on David's death, and he can speculate on David's death and slander David and call him a killer, a child killer, a wife killer,
Right.
and a coward, because one of the most cowardice things you can ever do is kill yourself. So he has no problem commenting on that.
Right.
But he's not going to comment on some of these basic facts that would contradict any notion that David would ever kill himself. Pretty
Well, it's funny,
interesting.
like I was saying, because Ben Swan literally corrects him.
He's like, what? How
He's
dare
like,
you
"No,
correct me?
you have prior knowledge. What the hell are you talking about?"
I would if the only part of that conversation I would have been familiar with would have been on what would have taken place during the part of the interview. I know that knowing David, any point, I mean, of the suicide and the extreme of the tragedy doesn't, like I said, it doesn't for us. It
No,
still
he's
doesn't make
stubborn like
sense.
Biden.
Danny, I just want to ask you this. Did you guys ever have this conversation? And the reason I ask that is because, look, I've been asked this question many times before. A lot of people have asked me dozens and dozens of times, do you feel safe? Do you worry about being killed for what you're doing? They jokingly say, are you suicidal? And they don't say it making a joke out of suicide. They say it, in reference to Andrew Breitbart. They say it in reference to Michael Hastings. And they say, look, I hope that you are safe in what you're doing. And so they ask the question, you're not feeling suicidal, are you? I'm just wondering, did you guys ever have this conversation about him fearing for his life, feeling threatened? Is that a conversation about death that you guys ever?
If people don't know who Ben Swan is, I won't spend time on it, but please go and look up this guy. Look up some of the things that he's done, some of the confrontations, things like. There's a reason why people have asked him if he would ever commit suicide. It's a standard thing. It's almost become a normal thing where,
Hmm.
and like I said before, many times it takes 3, 4 seconds to just say, I will never commit suicide. Put it on record. If
Right.
somebody does try to frame you for a suicide, then you'll have the evidence right there.
Oh, I might as well say it now since my Twitch channel was taken down, and I was saying
Uh-oh.
it pretty regularly. Yeah, I'm not suicidal, nor am I homicidal, nor is my family homicidal or suicidal. So if anything happens, I mean, you know what to do.
Look
It's
into
that
it.
same thing.
Yeah, how
Yeah,
about
look
that?
into it.
Well, and the thing that gets me is we know that David went on Alex Jones's show and stated he was not suicidal. And
Right?
was Danny with him during that interview? I can't remember.
Yeah, yeah, he was.
So then he does know. He knows
Yep.
exactly that David stated that. So why would
Did
he kill
David
Ben Swan?
did David state it during that interview, the
I know
Alex Jones interview?
I'm almost
Yeah.
I know.
positive it was Alex Jones on, and it was broadcast right
There
there.
was
Hmm.
there was a Hagman news report that came out where one of the Hagmans, but basically said that he said he talked with David offline about this, and David told him that he was not he was not prone to suicides. Sean Wright has said the same thing. Sean Wright is on record also saying the
Well,
same
I
thing
do
about
have
David
this
Crowley.
clip saved somewhere. I mean, because
Okay.
as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh my goodness. But it was broadcast. I'm almost positive it was Alex Jones. And
Okay.
again, that
I'd love to get the quote.
yeah,
Maybe you can help
I'll
me
see.
find that
Yeah,
later.
I'll see if I can find that, because
I
that's the
appreciate
first
it.
thing I'm like going, wait, he's telling people publicly less than a year before he's dead that he's not suicidal. And so then all of a sudden they're like going, okay, now not only is he suicidal, now he's homicidal.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. I know, well, there's a couple
They can say it.
speeches and things like that that he has done. So yeah, it would be good to calculate to add that, because I only have two on the record. So obviously there's a few that I'm missing here where David has said that, or where it's been commented that David said it. But to get it directly from him is obviously going to
Yep,
be
it was from
the
him.
best way. Awesome.
Hey, thank you guys for having me though. I gotta get back to work myself. So
Thank you, my friend. Thanks for
of
joining.
course. All right. I'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
All right. All right. Let's keep going here.
Had.
We've had that conversation early on it, and this is when. But then there was a period when David started putting distance between his friends and his family
Okay.
on it, and that his I know that he was going through a personal transition, and I don't know if he was battling a lot of the bigger pictures.
I want to go back for a second there, where he was saying that David was distancing himself from his friends and from his family. because there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of stuff about that, which, you know, the more that I look at it, it's not as black and white as they want to make it sound.
Right.
Why do they just want to say, yeah, he was distancing himself from his friends and family? First of all, I don't believe that he was distancing himself from his family. All right, this family, if let's just look at David's side, not Komel's side, because we know there's an issue with Komel's side. Komel had an issue with her own parents. They were not talking. At any point, Komel could have picked up a phone and talked with them. So I'm not buying anything that David was keeping her away from
No.
talking with them or anything like that. If she wanted to, she could have. Whatever the issue was, whatever the real things that were going on, and I'm just guessing here. Obviously, I wasn't there. I wasn't a part of this, but a lot of these guys weren't either. But they never bring up any of the stuff that we have read in David's journal that show why he was distancing himself from these quote unquote friends, because they were leeching off of him, because they wanted things from him, because they were looking to him to be this leader. They were looking to him, and he's a young father. He's a new homeowner. He's, you know, a husband. They've only been married. They haven't been married for that long when you really think about it. They're both young and they're trying to get their life going, and they have this great opportunity for David to get his foot into a door that is almost a door almost impossible to get yourself into, to the actual Hollywood door. Many people have done it. Many people have done it and turned away from it. Many people have gotten close and it didn't happen. And that's where David was. This was about to happen for him. This is going to be a life-changing thing for him, for his work, for everything. And he would be a credible person because he is a person that served this country. You know, that makes him very, very credible, I think. I think it would have been a lot. And they were going after soldiers right around that time. They were going after many soldiers, especially if they were speaking out against the wars. They were really going after those soldiers. It didn't matter if they were current, former, et cetera, et cetera. I think the whole Vietnam thing, you know, the deep state, whatever you want to call them, these people, these evil people, really learned a lot from the whole Vietnam and how powerful a soldier who served his country or her country can come back and really explain to you what the war is like and how wrong it is for us to be in these other countries. You know, it doesn't have to be that, oh, all the soldiers are evil and they just want to run around and kill people and all that stuff. It's a very complicated thing. And for us, for people like me who have not served, who just, you know, look at this stuff and obviously can see, you know, the good side, can see the bad side and everything, it opens my eyes when I hear some of these stories directly from a soldier who was there, who was fighting in these wars that they did not agree with. And by the time they realized that we should not be here, what could they do? What could they really do? You know, but be court-martialed or something like that. So, anyways, little off topic there, but I just feel like David would have been a very credible person. And
Well, you know, and I think that's why I fight for David and his character and his name, you know, because at the time I was married and my husband was sent over to Desert Shield, Desert Storm. My brother Russell was over there during Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I mean, I know what it's like to be the wife of a soldier that's in the middle of a war, and it was hell. And what I kind of not only relate to David, but definitely to Komel. And when her husband was over there, I get it. And I understand the shit that these men went through, not just over there, but when they had to come back. And it wasn't from the people. Thank God the American people really embraced our soldiers. And there was nothing greater than when our husbands are coming home and you've got people standing at the airport saying, thank you for your service. I mean, it was amazing. You know, Vietnam veterans didn't get that. However, it's what the military did to them, not only over there, but when they came home, and they're still doing to them today. And David had the guts and the courage to say, not only tell people what really was going on, but he stood up against it. And now his movie is incorporating some of, and not everything about our military is bad. I'm not saying that, because I love my country and I would fight and die for my country. But, you know, we're not perfect. We have some really screwed people that do things. But David was a real soldier. I mean, in every I don't know, definition of the word, every way you could look at it. He loved his country, he fought for his country, but he also loved his family, and he loved his wife, and he loved his child, and he wanted to show what he had learned. And because of that, then all of a sudden he became the enemy of the state, so to speak. And maybe, you know what I mean? In the eyes of a lot of people, he became the enemy of the state. And it took courage for him to do that. And to see people like Danny August Mason and Sean Wright and Mason Hendricks and, Chris Peck, all these other people, all of them, I can't name all of them, but, to take him and take his name, and then without thought and without even a shred of remorse, call him what they've called him, is disgusting.
I agree. And thanks, Star. I think I know which one. I think that's from the Ron Paul Fest, or the Paul Fest, whatever. But yeah, I'll definitely go and find that. I do remember, I think I have that somewhere too. So we'll go and find that and add that to the list of times David says he'll never kill himself. There it is. All right, let's keep going on here. All right, back to our buddy.
Questions on spiritualism and his placement within society, and also as a filmmaker. So I don't know if that part, but the discussions that we had before, I know that he wouldn't be suicidal because David was one of the strongest guys I've ever.
There it is right there. I'll go back a few seconds there. It's very important. Listen to what he's saying here.
That part, but the discussions that we had before, I know that he wouldn't be suicidal.
Discussions that we had before, I know that he wouldn't be suicidal. Here we have another person who's saying David wouldn't be suicidal, while at the same time saying David was suicidal.
Yeah. And it's interesting, this choice of words. Our discussions at the time. Be suicidal.
Nice
so
catch.
it's like, yeah, you got to catch what he's saying. So then it's kind of like, well, yeah, he never said he would do that then, but it leads the person who's going to now go, well, then what about now? Maybe he's right. Yes, back to the deceiver. I agree, Star.
His breathing. Oh, I didn't catch his breathing.
Yeah, he does the catching his breath. Watch
his face reaction. Do you see his shoulder? No, what's the shoulders?
The shrugging. Yeah.
The shrugging. Interesting.
It's all deceptive. That's all deceptive behavior.
So strange. He means suicidal. I guess maybe it's a Freudian slip or something, but he said not suicide. That's all I know. All right.
Because David was one of the strongest.
I'll go back.
So I don't know if that part, but the discussions that we had before, I know that he wouldn't be suicidal because David was one of the strongest guys I've ever met before in my life, not only intellectually but just physically, all around. When you think of alpha males, he was like to the T of that. So that's why, and like I said, for me to say that it was a suicide and dual murder, it's hard enough to actually have those words come out of my mouth. Do I truly believe that? I mean, I'm going to look at the reports. I'm very analytical. I know David, but at the same time, I got to look at the bigger picture and all the facts, and from the information that's coming in and what David was doing and kind of where he was emotionally at that time. Some of it is up to speculation because the contact with him became less and less in the course of a couple months ago, and that just wasn't me. It was his family and his friends on the same time. So like I said,
he was to some extent.
I just want to say he's talking about that the contact became less and less, right? So the contact, let me go back where we are. So the contact became less and less. He doesn't explain, doesn't give you any context or anything because he does not, because that would show, okay, well maybe this distancing had nothing to do with David committing these crimes. Maybe the distancing actually had something to do with David and these guys having some sort of a falling out or something like that, right?
Well, and it's very, hi Rick, cryptic. That's just I just wanted to use the word, not cryptic, but cryptic. That he does this. It's very, he's very sneaky about pulling the attention away from him. On one aspect, it's like, okay, yeah, we really weren't close, but then all of a sudden he's choosing his words carefully, but at the same time, he doesn't know what he's saying because he feels flustered. So that's why I think he does a lot of his, and he does a lot of sharp intakes, this type of thing, just before he's about ready to go off on something he knows is not necessarily true. It's a tell. That's his tell. But when you notice when he was talking about how David being a strong person and emotionally, mentally, did you see how calm and how direct and his words he wasn't fumbling over? And then the very next time when he's going to be deceptive or come up with his own little ideology, it's the shoulder shrug, the sharp breath, and then the da 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 da. He has definite tells.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did. Tony mentioned this. Nice Mason hand sign at 1919. He is holding the mask. I'm not even catching any of this stuff that people
I
are.
didn't see that either.
I'm not catching any of this. I'm looking at what does he have behind him. If you look at this screen, well, I guess I got to go
I
back
want
to
to
the
see him holding
screenshot.
the mask.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess this is like a Masonic
Oh, it
symbol or
is.
something.
It is. Yes, that is.
Okay.
But
All
I
right.
do that too. It's just a nervous habit that I do, but that is
I'm
correct. That is a Freemason sign.
Okay, I didn't know that. I may do that. If you look in this, if you're looking at the camera, look on the far left-hand side behind him. There's like a door. Yeah, I don't know if anybody can see the cursor or not, but there's a door there or something or a window, whatever it is. And then over here, there's a spiral
Well,
thing. So the
can you remove
spirals,
the comment so I can
oh, that
see?
would probably help. Yeah, that's all, huh? Let's see.
Just little.
That may
Okay.
help. Okay, so see that little circular thing back there?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you pay attention to that, it's kind of like one of those like windy little road things. It's like a spiral, right? That kind of goes through with this. So it can be associated with mind control, symbolisms, et cetera, et cetera. I've seen it associated with a lot of different things. It's just interesting that he had that back there.
Yeah.
That's all. That is all. Let's see. Let's keep.
Withdrawing.
Yeah, well, he was withdrawn, but like again,
But that wasn't
I want to.
unusual.
No, it wasn't unusual because I want to reinstate that he was coming up with a couple new directions for what
I'm
he
gonna go
wanted to
back
proceed with
since
Free State.
go back just a little bit.
It is up to speculation because the contact with him became less and less in the course of a couple months ago, and that just wasn't
Couple
me. It
months
was his
ago.
family and his friends
So
on the same time. So,
So he
like I
was
said,
with,
he says a couple months ago, but their thing really started back in May. I think it started as early as May 2014,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
even earlier. Because why is David writing Danny August Mason's character out of the latest script? The
Yep.
May 2014 script does not have Danny August Mason's character in it.
Nope.
Why?
And
Why?
plus, the uneasiness at the birthday party had nothing to do, and they tried to make it about David and Kamel, had nothing to do with the two of them, and had everything to do with David and them. It was the interactions between them.
Right, right. And it's interesting how he makes it, it's not, oh, he wasn't just distancing himself from us. That was from the family too.
Yeah, see, that's what
So,
I was talking about, that
right.
cryptic. He's throwing stuff in there like, to take it off. Okay, so if he just says, oh, well, he was distancing himself from me, then all of a sudden the eyes would then go whoom, onto him. But so
Right.
he throws in other deflectors.
Right. Good point.
was to some extent withdrawing.
yeah, well, he was withdrawn, but like again,
But that
I
wasn't
want to.
unusual.
No, it wasn't unusual because
See, again, it wasn't unusual for him to withdraw, yet he withdraws. It's unusual. All this stuff is supposed to lead us. It's really for weak-minded people. They're really just trying to attract the weak-minded people who really don't understand anything about this case, who just want to believe that this was another case of a soldier who went crazy and killed his family, and he happened to be on the other side. He happened to be a libertarian, a Ron Paul guy, which was one of the worst things you could be at that time for many
Right.
of these people, because you had people on the left or blue people, then you had the right and the red and everything. So all of the Obama people wouldn't like David. all of the Republicans who did not like Ron Paul because they felt like he was stealing votes from them, they wouldn't like David. This guy is found himself right in the middle, and he didn't care. He didn't care about that. So it's pretty interesting. And I thought a lot of these guys were right there too. I thought they were all kind of Ron Paul guys too, and I don't know. I mean, or libertarians and everything, but this is not the behavior of libertarian. It's not the behavior of freedom lovers. It's not the behavior of people that love this country. It's not the behavior of people that understand in this country, in the greatest country ever, you are innocent until proven guilty. Their behavior does not match any of that stuff, even 7 years later. And it's more shameful now because they have more access to all of those documents, to everything that we know about David Crowley, and they still want to act like David Crowley is guilty. It's very shameful.
I want to reinstate that he was coming up with a couple of new directions for what he wanted to proceed with Gray State. And when he gets in that mode, I just let him get in that mode. And I've been with him in that part of that mode when he gets kind of into the creative state. And it's one of those things you got to let him be, let him process, let him get all the things down that he wants to show you. So he's able to actually explain it to you fully without you asking questions. And then him becoming frustrated on it because, like I said, his mind works like 1,000 miles an hour and everything. So, and also with that, it's just that with the news and everything, and I can see how getting that news out and people relating that I'm not suicidal, and with a lot of people who are within the world of conspiracy and saying that he was, outed by the government. I don't think he actually was outed by the government on this because of, like I said, the relationship and you being an outsider and us being close family. But I know that we're working thoroughly on investigating it, and we know that we have a long road ahead of us.
That's too much.
Do you
That's
see him
too much.
tripping over his words left and right? I mean, this is one of his tells. He's lying out his butt.
Yeah, it's talking point after talking point, jumping over talking points on top of
Yes.
other talking points. But I just want to go back there for a few. There's a few things said there.
That news out and people relating that I'm not suicidal, and with
He's almost saying he's almost discrediting the news that there is evidence that David says he's not suicidal.
Yeah.
a lot of people who are within the world of conspiracy and
Within the world of conspiracy, which is what this guy has based his whole thing on. This is what all these people who have been leeching off of David have based their whole existence on.
Yeah.
Is the conspiracy. And then all of a sudden they're like these higher, I don't know. This is too much for me. That's too much.
saying that he was, outed by the government. I don't
Outed, and that's the other thing. That was the main thing. They had to create two sides. We have the Democrats, we have the Republicans, and that's it. Nothing else matters. This is kind of the same thing. We have either David did it or the government did. That's it. Those are the only choices you guys are given.
I don't think he actually was outed by the government on this because of, like I said, the relationship and you being an outsider and us being close family.
Because of the relation. What is he talking about there? I don't understand that. Because of the relationship. He wasn't outed by the government.
Well, he then is, I think, going to try to go on and explain what he means because, and then he's saying, well, because of course Ben's an outsider, but he of course is family. Well, he's not family. David didn't want anything to do with him. It's not family.
Didn't he just say like a minute ago David was distancing himself from
Yes, yeah.
All of a sudden
we would know because we're family.
Okay.
No, you don't.
Makes sense.
But I know that we're working thoroughly on investigating.
That's a key word right there. They're working thoroughly on investigating. They're citizen investigators, just like Dan and myself and everyone else.
Well, and you're talking about his body language. Look at his face right now. That is a face that he's trying to convey sincerity. Believe him when he says that they're going to be looking into this, and it's all crap.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Let's see what else. What else does my buddy have to say here?
It and we are not. We know that we have a long road ahead of us.
The thorough investigation thing is so interesting because that is exactly what the police will say, that they did a thorough investigation. It's also what Kenneth Maines says when Dan Hinnon hired Kenneth Maines to as a private investigator. We should have just paid Steven Sanzeri the money. We could have got much more out of a
and
real
here's the,
PI.
yeah, you know what? And this is something that I don't think gets stated enough about Kenneth Maines.
Yeah.
Oh my God! No, that man he should not even have a license. He admits when, especially when it came back, the report came back, and Dan was like, and he's like, okay, I read the reports, and I think according to the reports that yeah, he did it. And then we're like, well, yeah, if you only read the reports and read what they say, why would you think otherwise? So we're like, we had questions, and then Dan presented with those questions. Well, what about this? Did this and this and this add up? Oh, I didn't look at that. Oh, I didn't even know that was there. Oh, there are photos? Oh, wait a minute. No, I didn't read that. Oh, I guess I'll go back and read it again. He never went back and read it, never once answered any of the questions, and admitted he didn't read and look at the photos and then compare notes. He just read some reports and said, oh, well, yeah, the reports are correct. No, they wrote the reports. Yeah, that they did. But the report, I mean, the guy was an absolute nincompoop boob.
Well, he also watched Eric Nelson's film. Give him some credit for that.
And that didn't raise questions. I mean, and again, this
not.
tells me that he didn't do any research at all, even on that, because I found that article where they said we were leading it. We had a directive, and we wanted to make sure that people followed what we wanted. And when they did, we were happy with it. So it was not about presenting a case with facts. They had a narrative, led toward that narrative, and when people followed that narrative, they considered it a success. That's not investigation, and that's not a documentary. That's a smear campaign. And the fact that Kenneth Maines, the numbnut, couldn't figure that out, and the fact, again, I don't like him. And it's not because he said, David, if he had said, okay, I looked at this photo and I compared this and I read, and here's why this makes sense, I could have respected that. And I think we all would have said, oh, okay, cool. Maybe we were wrong. We'll go. But to not do any investigation at all, to read one report, which took him forever to do because he wasn't reading it and wanted to come up with a conclusion anyway. He just stole money is all he did. He stole money from Dan and walked away, patting himself on the back. And then you've got those who are like saying David's guilty going, oh yeah, see, even he said it. This guy, he has no credibility whatsoever. None.
Right.
Because when we asked him certain questions about certain pieces of evidence, he's like, oh, they did that? Oh, that was in there? Don't tell me you investigated anything if you don't know a blatant piece of evidence. Sorry. I guess I don't like him.
I guess not. No, I kind of gleaned that a little bit, but yeah.
Sorry, not sorry.
just a little bit there. All right. Let's continue on.
And it's going to take a lot for us to fully digest the actual claim of a...
To fully digest. It's going to take a lot to digest. Well, they ate this sucker hook, line, and sinker. They opened up their mouth and just digested all of this shit. And what came out of their ass? The same shit.
Exactly.
The same old, same old.
Murder-suicide at that point.
Murder-suicide at that point. At that point. At that point. From day one. It's just baffling to me how they can question so many other things. Not going to question this. Shameful. And really shows their true colors. These people don't care about truth. They don't care about what is really happening here. It's all about them.
So, yeah, until I get all the facts in, and I know that his family feels the same way, and I know...
They said that, and so we waited. We watched this interview and waited for the facts. The facts came out, and what did they do with the facts? They completely ignored them. Why would you do that if you care about the facts?
His close friends feel the same way. like everybody else, it still doesn't sit right, because we don't want to believe it in it, and but we just don't want people to do anything stupid on it and use it for a justification for some other tragedy.
Danny, as we
Which is what they did. Which is what they basically did, is they used it to make themselves look like a victim when people started questioning, how could you guys believe this theory? How could you guys ever buy into this, that your friend did this? There's a child killer out there, however you want to look at it, whether it's David or whether it's somebody else. There needs to be some factual evidence for the common person to understand who did this here. The police have not given us that. The friends have not given us that. The family has not given us that. They can speculate and they can think whatever they want about David. All right, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about what proves that we don't have to worry about a child killer out there. Is there anything? And in order to do that, we have to be able to say, this is what proves David did it. And if we can't prove David did it, then we can't just act like David did it. Does that make sense? I don't know. Makes sense to me.
Well,
maybe I'm living in a dream world.
Absolutely. It really does make sense.
All right.
I can't do this. I'm so busy touching my chin.
I'm just going to keep my hand on my chin from now on and go from there.
We wrap up here, and I thank you so much for your time and for this conversation today. There are a lot of fans of Gray State, of the project, certainly of David and what he was doing, fans of yours, people who have stood with you all and supported this project for a long time. And I know the question is going to be raised, and so I would be remiss if I did not ask you, where does the project stand? What can you speak to as far as that goes? What do people need to know about where it goes from here? Because this project obviously bigger than just you or even just David. It is a project and a labor for a lot of folks. Just wondering what you can tell us as far as the future of Gray State.
For all the fans who've been supporting us, we couldn't have done it with, without the help with you guys. I know that we're going to be, and this is going to be also the representatives of Gray State, for our own personal dealing with the matter and coping and making sure we're at a good spot. We're going to go black for a while until we can fully understand where the direction's going to be.
I'm going to stop right there. This thing where they talk about going dark. This was a key moment here for me. It's like, wow, you guys are going dark. So you're going to make your comments and you're going to accuse this man and then go dark? How about go dark first? How about just keep your mouth shut? Don't say anything. Let the investigators do their job, and let's all just look at what is happening here. But look at how quickly they were just like, no, we need to make sure. They wanted to steer this to anyone. Any groups, the Facebook groups. We had a Facebook group and a Facebook page. These idiots contacted both of the owners of the Facebook page, which is Justice for David Crowley of Gray State, created by Thomas Lapp, and they contacted Dan Hinnon, the creator of the Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook group. They contacted both of them wanting admin rights. They wanted to control these two groups, or the group and this page. But then they're going to go dark. You know why they went dark? Because nobody was buying their crap. They had to go dark. Because if they kept talking, if they kept running their yappers, it would only, and probably the police probably told them this too, like, you guys are not doing us any favors. You're actually making this whole thing worse, which I believe they actually were, especially this particular interview right here. Really opened up my eyes. Remember, I'm 7 days in, not even 7 days in at this point watching this. Knowing, I knew a little bit about Ben Swan. I've seen Ben Swan on, I think on Alex Jones, and I've seen, some other things that Ben Swan has done. I still like Ben Swan, but it's just like, wow, this is really it. You guys, you guys are making this whole thing worse. You're not helping your case. You're not helping anything. You're just raising more questions, not only about what the official investigation, what the official narrative is, what these guys who were right there with David, it raises speculation towards them. And I think once they realized that, that's when they decided to go dark.
Yeah, and two, it's like, yeah, how dark could they have gone when they're going straight to the page and not only, and then sending you messages because you've posted that from Mason Hendricks. Plus, we've seen what Sean Wright has said is vulgarity, and and coming out and calling, basically telling you, the world that you and Dan are complete a-holes because you're torturing everybody.
It's our
And it's
fault.
like, you're
Yeah, it's our fault.
standing up for a man, and that's torturing somebody, but it's okay, and you're all right by calling him a murderer without any proof whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, their self-justification is amazing.
It's really interesting. There's only a few more minutes here, people. Thank you all for suffering with us. I appreciate that. I don't have to suffer myself by myself. Here we go.
Because a lot of the vision behind Gray State was David, and we don't know how to, until the extent we can get the full idea where
We don't know what to do. Is what he's basically saying. We have no idea what to do now.
David wanted to go with it. I want to get to that point and then make sure we can stick and make the best, the purest, best vision that David wanted.
That's the key right there. This is the proof that we were looking for, that we were looking at. They wanted to make sure that this project moved forward. So here's the biggest question. Here's one of the biggest questions that I've had is, how can they move forward with this? They're going to move forward, try to move forward with a project that is associated with someone they are labeling as a child killer, as a domestic abuser, a soldier who went crazy and killed everybody, who snapped. That's the project they want to move forward with? I mean, they don't, it just doesn't make any sense to me why they would want to do that. I never understood that.
For it, because that's what David deserves. 100%.
That's what
I mean,
David deserves. No, if David is a child killer, if David is a coward who killed himself and killed his wife, he doesn't deserve anything. He does not deserve to have his movie or have his project or have his name continued on or blasted or anything like that. No. If David is guilty, then the project should die with him. It's a failed
Exactly.
project by somebody who failed his family, failed him himself, failed this country, and failed everybody who was following him, whoever his followers were. This is really weird to me. This was one of the main talking points, and you brought it up, Catherine, about the date. I think the first, and I could be wrong, I'll have to check my records, but I think the first time Sean Wright contacted me is actually the day after this interview happens. I think he contacted me on January 24th. That would have been one day after this interview happened. The interview hadn't aired yet. The interview doesn't air until the 27th. But I wanted to make sure that, if we had a date and a time, and thanks to Zach Carter, we definitely do, a date and a date when this interview was actually made, not when it was posted. So it was made on the 23rd, posted on the 27th, 2015.
Being any kind of sidestepping that at all. I think there will be something that will come from this. I don't know what it will be right.
What do we have that came from this? We have Eric Nelson's film. That's what came from this. Go and look up who are the producers, executive producers, co-producers of Eric Nelson's film, A Gray State. Those people made money off of David's death, off of Komel's death, off of a 5-year-old child's death. They made money off of that. Don't even come at me and try to accuse me of making money off of anything.
Not only did they make money, but then they nominated themselves for an award at Hollywood.
Oh, is that right? Oh, I
What
missed
the
that
hell?
one.
Oh yeah, I looked into it. They
What do you
nominated
mean?
themselves.
They nominated themselves for for like the best documentary of 2017 or
I think
something.
so. Whatever
Wow.
it was, but it was like, oh, holy cow! And again, it's okay with everyone from that side of the argument. It's okay that they all make all this money, but if you do a book and you give it away, and if somebody wants to buy it in print, they can. All of a sudden, you're the horrible person.
Of course. How dare I? Because I'm not a part of their crew. I'm not a part of their fan club, right? I'm on the outs.
Right, because if you had written everything and used their narrative, they would be praising you and probably handing you cash.
Yeah, you're right. They'd be throwing money at me while I'm while I'm on a pole dancing, they would throw
You
that
wouldn't
money
even need the
right
pole.
without the pole. That's too funny. Okay, let's Danny's looking. There's some great comments. I know I'm really trying to catch all these comments, but not catching them all. Gotta catch them all. What is that from? Pokemon. All right, almost done here.
right now, but I know that we won't stop at it. I know that it will take.
We won't stop at it. We won't. Yeah, and it only takes him what, a couple months, and then he's trying to continue it. If you watch or if you listen to the interview Dan Hinnon did with Michael Boggio, which is the president of the Michael Entertainment Group, the guys that David was working with when we talk about the $25 million budget, when we talk about this deal, this Hollywood deal that David had up until he died. The only reason that the Hollywood deal ended was because David died. When we talk about that, we're talking about Mike Boggio. And if you watch that, if you just listen to it, you can hear where Mike Boggio talks about that even after David died, people were still trying to pitch him the Gray State Project. They were still trying to pitch it to him as this is something that we can do. They were showing him different reels, and we can get into that with Joe Biggs and some other interesting things related to Danny August Mason. But they were trying to move forward with this. And I'm just like, are you guys that brain dead? Do you
That
guys
is
not?
appalling.
It just
Absolutely
doesn't make
appalling.
sense. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make any sense to me. Now, I was on a phone call with Mason Hendricks at the time when I learned about this, and I showed him. I sent Mason Hendricks a couple screenshots of what Danny August Mason was doing, and according to what he said, he had no idea. He was actually pretty upset with it, to the point where he said if Danny August Mason continues down this road, that Mason Hendricks would deliver Danny August Mason's head to me on a platter. Obviously, I don't think he physically meant he's gonna cut Danny August Mason's head off and then send it to me.
No.
But there is something there. It's like, well, what do you have on Danny August Mason that could actually figuratively put Danny August Mason's on a head where I would use it and do something with it? What do you have on Danny August Mason? What does he have on you? Because Danny August Mason pretty much contacted me saying something very similar. So there's a lot of infighting. There was a lot of infighting that was going on and everything, and I'm not exactly sure what was happening during this time. And that would have been, yeah, around 2016, 2017, right around the time when Eric Nelson's film came out. It was a pretty crazy, crazy time there. But so there were some weird things that were going on where the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. Danny August Mason was posting. Because he had access to the Gray State their YouTube channel, so he posted something that he was not supposed to post, a little 2-minute, 3-minute trailer or something like that, and Sean Wright got all bent out of shape and all this stuff. So there's just all of this weird infighting with all of these guys that pretty much gives you a glimpse. At that time, it gives you a glimpse into what was going on with them and David Crowley, right? Imagine how much they were trying to take credit for all of this stuff with David Crowley when they were all infighting afterwards. It's like you guys are fighting over a project created by somebody that you accused of being a child killer, and you want to take his project and do something with it. I just never understood that. I know I've said that too many times.
The Gray State will take a new shape and form, but we won't.
The Gray State will take a new shape and form, and that's exactly what they do. Danny August Mason created something called Dream State, and I think that is kind of his spinoff of Gray State. And he tried to lay some claims to David Crowley's work and everything, and that didn't really work out well for him either. Then he became a Freemason. Then he had some domestic issues, some criminal issues too.
He was, twice for domestic violence. Felony charges pressed against him twice.
Isn't it interesting how you have at least two of these guys who have claimed that David is a domestic abuser, and there's actually facts that they are. That's pretty interesting.
Yep.
Compromise. I know that because I won't in general, because I feel like I'll be compromising a good friend and a visionary, and that's what David was. And I know that there's been a lot of pour out and people wanting to help, and if they want to help, what they can do is that Dan Crowley, David's brother.
Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, you gotta hear this part here. This has since been taken down. This GoFundMe. I'll just let him talk.
And I know that there's been a lot of pour out and people wanting to help, and if they want to help, what they can do is that Dan Crowley, David's brother, we've been meeting with him a lot just in this time of need, and we set up a GoFundMe campaign for Komel, David's wife, for Rainy, because Komel's mother is currently.
They set this up for Komel and for Rania? No, they didn't set this up for Komel and for Rania. This is all for Komel's mom.
Wow.
I'll keep going.
For Rainy, because Komel's mother is currently on her deathbed, and she's dying from cancer, and they don't have any life insurance, and they're in Waco, Texas, and their bills are over somewheres of $5 million right now, and we know
This is crazy.
That is
This
such
is
a lie.
there's so many it's just talking points.
And she wasn't even on her deathbed. She didn't, unfortunately she did pass away, but that was this last year or two. Back then she was not on her deathbed.
Right.
Oh,
Right. At this point, but that's what they were being told. Who was telling them this? And the other thing is, well, he always says we. It's we, right? It's this whole group of people. And
yeah,
we know
he's
who the
including
cast
himself. Yeah.
character is. Right. We were in contact with David's brother, right? With Danny Crowley. And they're creating the whole thing, or Dan Crowley, with the most suspicious thing, the most weird thing that Dan Crowley Jr. ever did was create a GoFundMe page for Kamel's mom. I don't know if he ever met Kamel's mom. Did
Well,
he know Kamel's mom at
And
all?
Danny August Mason just said, and we helped. We created this page. Well, yeah, why would they? What does Kamel's mom have to do with any of this? And then try to use David and Komel. I mean, her mom, they had insurance. They could deal with it. Like every other American in the world, we have to deal with our medical bills. And wow, I'm sorry. This is going to piss me off. I'm going to shut up.
Medical bill, $5 million is a lot for medical bills. Where does that number come from? And second of all, why does Kamel's family ask Dan Crowley to take this GoFundMe page down?
Yeah,
Why was this even
when they
created?
found out about it, weren't they like, wait a second, don't do this. Why are you doing this? They
Yeah.
never even talked to them about it. It was like almost an insult to the family.
Yeah. I mean, come on. Do you really think that they needed that much of $5 million?
Yeah, no, they didn't.
$5 million, really?
And it wasn't in the name of them. It was in their name.
Yeah,
It was
this
in
all
Dan-
went in. This
yeah,
all went
Dan
to Dan
Jr.
Crowley Jr. Right. It's just weird. It's just like, yeah, this is why you guys need to go dark. You shouldn't have done any of this. You're not helping the investigation. You're doing a pretty good job at, raising many eyebrows. But you're not doing a very good job at just letting the police do what they do and figure out what happened here.
Yep.
It's really odd. Really odd. But this GoFundMe thing, I think, is one of the most. It doesn't matter how many times I learn about this, or listen to this, or hear people talk about this back then. It's so frustrating. Let's go back.
Because Komel's mother is currently on her deathbed, and she's dying from cancer, and they don't have any life insurance, and they're in Waco, Texas, and their bills are over somewheres of $5 million right now. And we know that we probably won't hit that mark with what we have, but to make something good come from this, we would like people, if they can, and I think you should have the link with you, Ben. And if you could put it up there on your site, that'd be great. Whatever they can do to kind of funnel that and just keep the Crawleys in their thoughts, the Komel's family in their thoughts too. And just know that it could be a little while, but it's not going to stop us in our tracks. Right now, we just have to take some time so we can grieve and just take care of ourselves first.
This
Because
is
if
how
we
you
don't,
grieve.
then what we try to come out with the idea with Grace and the vision that David had will not even come close to it. And the last thing I want to do, and everybody else associated with part of the team, we do not want to let the fans down and not get what we wanted to out originally. If David
They don't want to let the fans down, but they have no idea with telling the fans that David is a murderer, is a child killer. No problem with that, but we don't want to let you guys down. We don't have any facts to back up any of these things they're saying about David, but we don't want to let you down.
Yeah, we
So
have no
we're
problem
gonna
financially using David's name, but
There
by
you
the
go.
way, he was a killer. But
There
give
you
us
go.
the money, all in David's name. He killed his daughter. Oh, but we
Right.
really want to help the family, but David is a murderer. Oh,
It's money. It's money with this GoFundMe thing. It's money with moving forward. It's money, 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 money. Where is the truth? Where is the truth? Where is, you know what? Forget the money, guys. We're going to find out what really happened here. If David did this, then he's a piece of crap, and we're going to show you guys why. And if he didn't do this, then we're going to find out what really happened here. That's where these guys should be. That's where they should have been. What happened? Because if this was another case, if this was somebody that they didn't know, and this was a big primetime case, they probably would have jumped all over it.
yep.
But no, it's different. It's all different.
was around.
Yeah, and Danny, again, I want to thank you for your time so much, Danny Mason. And by the way, folks, I want to just second what he said there. You know, there are a lot of people frustrated right now. There are a lot of people who are feeling a
Fuck yeah.
variety of emotions, from sadness to anger to frustration to disbelief. If you're one of those people and you're watching this and you're wondering, how can I channel energy right now? Don't do something stupid. One of the things you can do in channeling that energy is to support the family of this man who is really struggling right now. We'll put the GoFundMe here in the link on YouTube and also at benswan.com. So if you're watching in either location, absolutely a way that you can help and that you can find a way to be useful in this time, a very difficult time.
Yeah, they're struggling because they want your money. Yeah,
Yeah.
Kamel's family doesn't care about that. They probably didn't even want this mentioned.
Right.
This is something they had at this point had at least been dealing with since the summer of 2014. You know, like, what does this have to do with any of? I don't know. It's really odd. They're using this forum.
Yeah, they're using the health issues of Kamel's mother as a means to make money for themselves. Because, if they had gone and talked to Mr. Alam and said, hey, do you mind if we do this in her memory or to try to help in memory of Kamel? They didn't do any of that. They just jumped on the bandwagon, put this GoFundMe page up, put it under Dan Jr.'s name and said, oh, we're doing this for them. And then their family goes, excuse me, take this down.
Right.
So we see the motivation right there. It had nothing to do with the family, and the family obviously didn't feel it had anything to do with them.
No. And from what I think with the interview that I did with Kamel's family friend, it sounded like they didn't know about this and they didn't need that money. They didn't need anything like that.
Right.
At some point, Kamel's mom does get better. For whatever is happening here, she does recover for a little while, and I think she did recently pass. But she did get better. Whatever was happening here in 2015, she got a lot better from that.
Yeah,
she was able to go home at least.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she was ill, and I don't think anybody questions that. But see, the drama, this is their wording that they use. Oh, she's dying. She's on her deathbed, to get the sympathy and empathy of people, so they'll start forking over cash. When in reality, was she sick? Yes, but she wasn't on her deathbed. You don't go on your deathbed for 12 years. You know what I mean? That's ridiculous. And that hasn't been 12 years. Yes, that's an exaggeration. But that's not how quote unquote hospice works. So again, like you said, money, money, money. That's all
Yeah.
it.
And my stepmom was in hospice, and I remember asking one of the nurses because I was, growing up, it was like I had always heard if you're in hospice, you're pretty much dead. Okay, but the nurse that I spoke to, and maybe she was just telling me this because you know I'm asking her a general question, and she's like, "Well, I'm not going to tell you that your mom is going to die, basically." But she says that there are cases where people do recover out of hospice. She said years ago it was different. If you're in hospice, you're pretty much dead. But she made it sound like in the last couple of years, et cetera, whatever, that their medical.
Well, nowadays, I think they kind of use hospice as, if there's really no room for them in the hospital and they need, kind of treatments and somebody just kind of watch over them and they can't get anybody to do in-home care, then they may put them in the hospice facility. But
Mhm.
they don't go around telling you, okay, they're on their deathbed, we're putting them in hospice, and then, a month later they're going home. That's not how it works. And back then, especially, that wasn't how it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know how long she was in hospice for, but it sounded like, she had no idea what was going on during this time. And I think a lot of that, especially after the other interview, people need, I wish we had the audio, but it wasn't a recorded interview. But Dan Hinnon did speak to Kamel's dad. And from what Dan Hinnon has said based on his notes from that talk, which Kamel's family has never said that there was anything wrong or that what Dan Hinnon said publicly was wrong. So they've never denied that this conversation happened. They've never said that anything that Dan has said wasn't true. And it seemed like Kamel's dad also has had questions and probably has questions. And I think the more that the family, and probably on both sides, these are two big families. They have extended family too.
Yeah.
And the more time that passes, the more that they think about it, the more evidence, the more facts that they have access to, the more that there's a possibility that they may actually help us at some point. They may actually say, you know what, okay, let's at least prove Greg and Dan wrong. Let's prove this Justice for David Crowley Family Facebook group wrong once and for all. And I think that's really hard for them because I think that they know if they try to do that, they're going to end up right here with us with
Yeah.
more questions. They're going to end up suing the Apple Valley Police Department for this crap investigation. I know that they've already had issues with these Gray State goons, these guys who claim to act like they were with them and they wanted to help them and everything. And I think just fed them a lot of BS.
Danny, thank you so much for your time, and thank you guys for watching. We'll see you again soon.
So that's how they end it there. It just all ends with the same old thing. So I don't know, Catherine, you have any final words? I'm gonna go through some of these comments here in um, what is Rick saying?
Only Sean Wright, and that's because Sean Wright, and that's because he contacted me and he was very rude, very condescending, and would constantly call me really horrible names. So one time I told him, said, "Dude, you don't know me. Don't talk to me like that. And if you can't be nice and a decent human being, then don't talk to me at all." And that was the last we had.
Interesting.
But he blamed David all over the place and telling me what I was for trying to say David was innocent.
This is their friend.
Yeah.
This is their friend. You're defending their quote unquote friend, but you're the bad guy. Or
Yeah.
the bad guy. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Um,
But and now I see why you wanted to do this, and I agree with everybody. Danny's body language is so telling. He has a lot of tells, a lot of giveaways. There's very few instances where he was speaking truth in this interview, and why this wasn't a red flag to everybody. I mean, the police, to BCA, to even Ben Swan. Hello. You can see that this guy is not being truthful and honest.
right. Right. Yep. Well, I think that will kind of wrap this up here. Let's see if there's anything. There's so many good comments coming in. I wish I had more time to really spend on them, but I do want to thank everybody here for joining us, and thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Will, for jumping in, and everybody in our awesome chat room. I really appreciate that, and we will definitely be back talking more. I think we're done with this part, but there's obviously there's still a lot more to cover, a lot more things to talk about. So we will definitely be back here. Thank you all for joining us live. I really appreciate it. Catherine, any final word? Catherine, tell us about your latest video, your latest two videos that you just did on your channel.
I know I did a live stream. Finally, did a live stream with Sophie and I. Yeah, I really wish you were there.
I
Okay,
know.
everybody.
If I could have, I would have been there. I think I was at my dad's wedding at
Yeah,
that point,
you
but
were,
yeah.
and you were busy. So next time the issues, Greg will take care. He'll tell me what I did wrong, and we'll get it fixed. But that actually was really good. It went really well, and so I'm going to be setting up another live stream here pretty soon. There's another person who's interested in the case and has been following it, Christy Strickland, who wants to join in, and so I'm going to have her on. But then Sophie and I just finished doing the blood analysis part 2, where we went through the last of the items that were tested. And we go through and we show you every piece of they're like 90% of the evidence excludes David. David's DNA is excluded. So, and that's what we point out. It's like, if he's guilty of this, if he committed these murders, why is his DNA excluded from a mixture of 2 or more people?
Wow.
Oh, and Sophia put the thing up.
Yep, just put the link in there, right there. There it is.
Thank you, Sophia.
That's how you find Catherine. Thanks, Sophia. Always appreciate it. All right, well, I will go ahead and shut this one down, and God bless you all again. Thank you all very much for taking the time out to just watch this. Whatever your thoughts are, the whole interview with Danny August Mason and Ben Swan is out there. I'm sure it's everywhere else. You can find it on my channel too. You find it on the same channel here too, in case you just want to watch it without our commentary. You can definitely do that. I was so shocked. A couple days ago, I went looking for it and I could not find it. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I can't find it anywhere. Wow. And I was like, oh, guess where I found it? On my on my channel. That's it. That's all there is. So anyways, we'll talk more about that. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. And until next time.
Are you interested in the paranormal? Murder mysteries, cryptocurrency, and thought-provoking interviews? Then check out Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking on YouTube, or every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Studio A at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Welcome to the Crypt.
Hello, my name is Dan Hennon. Today is November 24th, 2018, and I'll be providing updates on the Crowley case. Crowley case updates. Tonight's episode will be called The Curious Case of Danny August Mason. Some interesting things have come to light here this last week, documents that have been shared with the group, and I'm going to put this into a summary format that'll be easier to digest for the viewers. Now, one of the main contentions early on with this case along with David Crowley on the project called the Gray State, was whether or not there was a contract, whether or not there was a movie deal, whether or not there was a binding contract for this movie to move forward. And so we'll address some of that tonight. It appears that was the answer to that question was really, it's a gray area of what it really was. But I'll go through that tonight in certain sequences here. Let's get started. What we do have is that there was a proposal, there was a deal between Gray State, the Gray State Project, and MEG, which is Michael Entertainment Group. And this talks about the deal with the motion picture rights concerning an option, purchase agreement, deal, memo. And so what we have here is a document given to us in PDF format that was really made or agreed on July 25th of the year 2014. So we know David Crowley went to Hollywood, I believe once in May and once in June, and now we get to July, and there's a deal in place. I had a previous interview with Mike Boggio III. He is the president of Michael Entertainment Group, or MEG as it's referred to here. He did say that they were under a deal. They did have they were working toward this production of a feature film or even a web series with Gray State. So we know a deal was in place. So let's go through this contract here. It talks about the option. It talks about the various rights. And let's go to the second page. I'm not going to get into the details. You can certainly pause this video and read it for yourself. But it talks about the various rights, the publishing rights, various bonuses, consulting fees, travel expenses, and so on. And then here's the final piece of it. Basically, the contract here is between MEG, M-E-G, and David Crowley for Gray State. Now, this contract, just to clarify, this copy that we received was not signed. So we know that a contract was proposed, or a proposed deal here was on the books. The contention that we had was that we don't have any proof that anything was ever signed, and this also leads us to believe that still doesn't answer that question. Nothing here says anything was signed. This was just a file of the proposal. So we know David was working on a deal, Meg was working on a deal. Whether or not it was a signed contract or not is another deal. Now, since this contract, we also do have evidence that came to light from David Crowley in PDF format once again, showing the invoice from a law firm called Lohman Abdul, Minneapolis-based law firm. And so we see an invoice here at the end of July, which also makes sense. July 31st was the bill. We see the previous deal was, let's go back to the date, July 25th is when they basically agreed on the deal. Now we get an invoice from the lawyers, David Crowley's lawyers, working on the deal. And let's go to page 2 of the invoice. Line by line itemization talking about the dates of work being done from July 9th, 10th, 12th, 15th, various number of hours and what was being done and by who. And page 3 of the invoice, dates showing here July 18th all the way down to July 30th. Now if you look at July 25th, there's 3 entries there towards the bottom talking about revising and finalizing the draft between Gray State and MEG, the deal memorandum, teleconference, and the final draft. And so it's fair to say that David had a legal team, legal attorneys working on this deal. There was a deal, and legal team was involved. So sure enough, there was something in place. We don't know exactly what, but we've got evidence here to support that David Crowley was moving forward with some project. Now, the other piece of the puzzle, David had several companies he was working with, and several companies in the state of Minnesota that he owned. And so one of them, he had to get the release documents of the other individuals that he had business relationships with. This one here is a release agreement between David Crowley and Danny August Mason. Now, this is page 1, basically just releasing his rights. This was a legal document in PDF format that requests Danny August Mason to relinquish his rights and release his contractual obligations to the Gray State project. And there's page 1, and here is page 2. And so we see that the location here for the date and signature between David Crowley and Danny Mason. Now, the effective date is quite interesting here, and it's important. The date here, effective date towards the bottom, mentions August 1st, 2014. So his legal team writes up a release document as of August 1st to release Danny August Mason from any projects, because we know on July 25th, David has an agreement of some sort moving forward with Meg, and in fact, Loman Abdu was performing the legal work on that. The second one here is a release and waiver form also, and this relates to, if you look at the bottom, his business associate, Mitch Heil. And Mitch was involved in Hothead Productions, Gray State LLC, and in highlighted there is a company called the Bullet Exchange. And so it looks like 2 release forms were sent out by David Crowley, asking these 2 individuals to sign their paperwork, signature, date, send it back, and they can turn it back to the lawyers, and they would have their rights relinquished here. Now, we know Mitch Heil relinquished his rights and sent it back. This copy does not show him his signature or date on this, but we know that they did finish this off sometime in the month of August, close the books, because there's the evidence of the garage sale David Crowley had at his Ramsdale Drive address in Apple Valley, selling off the excess equipment from the Bullet Exchange. So he had the garage sale and consolidated or closed out of that business and shut down the Bullet Exchange. And then by releasing the rights here for Mitch Heil on Hothead Productions and Gray State, left only David Crowley to be in charge of Hothead Productions as the sole ownership of that. And then it was David Crowley for Gray State and Danny August Mason for Gray State LLC were the only 2 left. So Mitch Heil signed off. He did it to save the friendship and shut the business down and to save the relationship. He'd known him from high school. So what we get next is a response from Danny August Mason back to David Crowley. Nothing happens in August. The effective date was August 1st to send this back. Nothing happened in August. Now we get to the end, toward the end of September, and there's a PDF file here that Danny August Mason writes to David Crowley. It's a little small here, but I'll blow this up. First, Danny says, I understand the agreement refers to Gray State LLC, and then he talks about the difference is between Gray State, the Rise LLC. And he was not aware of this other business, and he wanted to clarify that as far as getting an understanding of what this release form relates to. Now, the release form relates to Gray State LLC. Gray State, this is where some of the other confusion comes in here, and I know we've got a lot of members on the page and in the group, is the Gray State, the Rise, was a separate entity, a separate organization, a company. They actually formed a company for the documentary, Gray State The Rise, the documentary. Gray State here just referred to as Gray State LLC, or Limited Liability Corporation, was the feature film, the full-length fiction-based feature film that was supposed to be made, produced, and shown on the big screen, or perhaps in a web series. This was the one that the contract is for, is Gray State only. And so the first bone of contention here between Danny August Mason is clarifying which company. The second paragraph, before I can sign any sort of release concerning Gray State, I request in exchange that you sign documentation allowing me, quote, complete access and control to Gray State The Rise LLC. You have stated many times before this project is of no interest to you. I would like to continue to work on this project with Robert Hoyt and produce a finished project for our fans. I request that you sign over ownership of the LLC and sign a similar waiver and release of claims that you are now requesting of me. So this is very interesting. This is almost a demand, or you could call this in legalese a counter offer from the first request that's being sent. A counter offer. Now he's also, he's asking for The Rise, which is the documentary. That David was working on toward the end. Now the very last paragraph says, I cannot sign the agreement, as in for a handful of reasons, but most importantly because I've dedicated 4 years to Gray State. I have been intimately involved in the creating, casting, development, production, and marketing of the project to this point. I invested my time and energy, often at the expense of my job and financial security, with the understanding that eventually I would receive compensation. Though I have received nominal compensation, I believe that I'm rightfully entitled to 10% of the gross revenue of whatever may be generated from Gray State moving forward. I would request that documentation be executed prior to me releasing any other claims or rights I have. And so this is back on that September 26th response memo from Danny August Mason to David Crowley. So the first, when we're talking numbers about this Gray State movie or feature film, it has come up before that part of the plan was that it would potentially be a $30 million budget film. And so this is the value of everything in the project. This is the mother lode. The Gray State project, the Gray State movie, the feature film, has a value, an asset value of one could argue $30 million. And Danny August Mason is not going to sign this away too quickly, knowing he's put in 4 years and has been very dedicated to this project. He's pointing it out here that I'd like to have at least 10% of whatever gets done with it. And so he's basically saying, I cannot sign the agreement. And so that was another question. We wondered if Danny August Mason ever signed it, ever sent it over, ever forwarded it back to the attorneys, or did he never sign the document? So I believe here that he never signed it. As it says, clearly states here that I cannot sign the agreement. Now, if we look at the timeline, there's an email correspondence back and forth between Danny August Mason and David Crowley, going back to September 29th, and then a response on, I have it highlighted, December 9th, and then the final correspondence on December 16th of 2014. Remember, the bodies, according to police, they think the bodies were, all three were found deceased on December 20, were probably December 25th or 26th. The bodies were found by neighbors on January 17th of 2015. But now this is coming up to the week before, and they still haven't had this resolved. So I'm going to go through each of these responses here in timeline format. And so the very first one was on September 29th. Danny August Mason wrote, David, I apologize. I apologize for not getting this to you this weekend. Was busier than anticipated. Now this makes sense. His memo, his response memo, was dated December 26th, which was a Thursday. Danny Mason was obviously busy on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday he gets to sending this out in the form of an attachment, his response. Now, this is the end of September, so I think David was hoping all this would be wrapped up in August like it was with Mitch Heil. And now we get to the end of September. Still nothing. On December 9th, David writes to Danny saying, in deference to your hesitation to sign the Gray State release document, I give you these verbal guarantees. You will have A, full producer credit on the film The Rise, an unpaid position. And that is The Rise. Once again, this is the documentary, which you wanted to move forward with anyway. And B, letter B, was guaranteed casting as lead role in Gray State series, paid. So he's saying this not in legal, but basically giving his word. A verbal guarantee is all that this is. And Danny August Mason, I don't believe is going to be believing this, because I think at this point he's already under the assumption that he's being thrown under the bus, or in a sense double-crossed on this deal. And now we get into some very interesting chess moves that are being done here between these two individuals. So he's going to have him full producer credit on The Rise, which is fine. And then, by the way, we're going to move forward with this Gray State series. You can be cast as the lead role, which is a paid position. But he still says, I'd like to have this done. I'd like to have the release finished. You'll have every opportunity to continue to collaborate, he says, writing and producing episodes and retaining your cherished position as a co-creator of the original concept in the public eye. But I'll not be able to sign you on to any contracted roles until I have your signed release document. I would like to have it by December 16th, after which we would be free to discuss a future with Gray State that's more respectful to your talents as a paid professional. Now, this is a kind of this is the shot across the bow here, letting him know that he means business. He gives a deadline, a hard deadline of December 16th, and also says that if it's not back by then, the most you'll ever be as a paid professional, or in a role as an actor only. And so Danny August Mason puts 4 years of his time into this. Always has said he wanted to be the co-creator of the original concept. But until he signs this, he's not going to be anything. So this is December 9th at 4:50 p.m. David sends this to Danny August Mason. Now, if we remember the date, December 9th, is very important. I have a post on Facebook that David Crowley writes. Keep in mind now, this is the same date. And I believe this is another chess move in this high-stakes game of essentially life or death. David writes, can you believe it? The Rise is almost done. I'm serious. She's coming out to be quite the looker. Can't wait to show you all, but I have to comb her hair for a few more weeks. Remember, this is The Rise now. Nothing to do with Gray State, the project, or the feature film, or the web series. This is The Rise, the documentary. Anyway, here's the important point. I'm quite serious about giving this film away. I've come to abhor the AJ, which is Alex Jones, model of peddling DVDs as truth and cashing in on suckers. I have given this film years of my time, and I'm delighted for the opportunity to burn it down by giving it away. Hope you all share in the feeling. And so this is December 9th. Because Danny August Mason has not released and signed the release document, the entire Gray State project, the feature film with Meg or the web series, whatever it was, is on hold, and it's essentially tabled. The entire project is tabled. There's nothing they can do. They're in a holding pattern until they get this release document. Danny August Mason is refusing to sign it, so there's nothing more David can do. Now, David's spending his time, because he can't do anything on the project, by working on the final finishing touches of the documentary called The Rise. Now, he knows on December 9th when he sends this message out on Facebook, and remember, this is the Facebook post that gets deleted after the bodies are found in the month of February 2015. This post off David Crowley's personal Facebook wall is surprisingly deleted by by someone. And so he's really threatening here to give it away. Now, The Rise is a business, it's a documentary to be, the plan was to sell it, to sell the documentary. TV, Netflix, cable, what have you. Now he's talking about giving it away, which means no one's going to make any money on it. And this was I think done the same time to looking for a response to see what would it take to for Danny August Mason, knowing he's serious about giving it away, and giving him the deadline at the 16th. Now we move on to the 16th. Remember in the previous post, I'd like to have your release signed document here at the bottom in yellow. I would like to have it by December 16th. And so now we get to the 16th. No response, no signed document. And we get an email on December 16th from Danny Mason, knowing it's the deadline, a nice, friendly email saying, buddy, please give me a call about moving forward before I sign the release form. So now I've got evidence, once again, it still isn't signed, as he states it here, that it isn't signed. This is December 16th. So it gets to be very interesting here. We know that nothing ever comes of it. This is the last communication, I believe, between these two. And it leaves us all with an awkward feeling. David was going to release The Rise for free at the end of the year. I think it was December 30th or 31st was the self-imposed deadline to release it out there for free. And then that was going to be used as promotional material to garner interest and more fan interest for when this web series or movie comes out. So he wanted to get it out there. On Christmas, he wrote The Rise, I think 5-day countdown to Christmas, and that was to get that out. So these guys are still having their email correspondence back and forth as late as the 16th of December. Now, when we go to the police investigation into this case, I pulled up the interview with Daniel August Mason done with Officer Tommy Booth from the Apple Valley Police Department. And so highlighted here, he conducts his interview on the 19th of January. Keep in mind, this is 2 days after the bodies are found. Bodies were found on Saturday the 17th. The 18th was the Sunday, and now here was Monday in January, Martin Luther King holiday. The cleaners were in there cleaning the house professionally, and also various people were in that home when they found the bullet hole in the ceiling was also on January 19th with 4 or 5 other individuals that were in the house before it was professionally cleaned and released to the family. And so we talk about Mr. Mason here doing his interview with Tommy Booth. Talks about he met him when he met David when they started doing the concept trailer, and talks about bullet exchange. And so this is the interview. Now I'm going to go to the next section. It talks in the first paragraph there that they raised about $61,000 to help do the trailer, and so they made the trailer and pitched that. Remember, the movie was never made. The funding, the movie was never produced. They were going to get the funding first and get the contract and then make the movie. Now, the second paragraph here in yellow, Mr. Mason said his involvement with Gray State and Crowley was strictly as an actor and as a friend, but had not been involved in any financing or was actually listed on any paperwork as a partner with Crowley and Heil. So what I believe this comment to be here is very deceptive. One could call it a lie, one could call it actually the truth, but what I think it is actually is deceptive. Now we know from the paperwork and the offer and the counter offers going back and forth between this release agreement that Danny August Mason was heavily involved, in fact sacrificing 4 years of his life to do this, and had ideas as being mentioned as the co-creator with the casting, the production and the marketing of this entire project. And so he was actually on, in order for him to sign a release form, he had to be tied into this business in the first place. So the mere fact that he had to sign the release document shows that he was far more than just simply an actor in Gray State. Now, what Mr. Mason is telling the officer here is that he doesn't believe he's not listed on any paperwork as a partner with Crowley and Heil. Now, Mitch Heil is listed on the bullet exchange with David Crowley. And Danny August Mason is correct. He is not listed on any paperwork for the bullet exchange. He is listed on as Gray State LLC. So this is a deceptive line here to police, saying I don't have any connections from a business standpoint to that project at all. I was merely an actor. Well, that's not true. That on its face is a lie. Not involved with any financing. That also is true. He wasn't involved in any financing, but he was listed very heavily involved in the Gray State. He goes on to say in the last paragraph there that they were in attendance in August at Ranny's birthday. And remember, Ranny's birthday party, the documentary from Eric Nelson called A Gray State, mentions that there was some unease and it was an uncomfortable setting at Ranny's birthday party in Apple Valley in August of 2014. Now that certainly would be the case because of the release statements were sent out. David had a deal that he couldn't tell anyone about, so that's why I think it was quiet and was awkward. He also had sent out release agreement paperwork with Mitch Heil and Danny August Mason, and Mason was at the party. How uncomfortable would that be? So yes, there was some uncomfortable feelings there at that birthday party that no one really could let on. David had a deal that he didn't let on to anyone else even. Him and Komel were the only ones who knew there was a deal in place. Let's go to the next segment. Danny August Mason goes on to say in yellow highlight here, the last time Mr. Mason saw David Crowley was in September, but he could not remember the exact date in September. He goes on to say that he had come over to the Crowley's residence to talk to David concerning the movie and where the movie was heading. Then talked to David out in the driveway of the residence and stated that, quote, David had looked like he had lost a bunch of weight and was fragile. So there's two questions here that I have. We know that the release form was sent sometime in August with an August effective date, or even the end of July with an August effective date. Danny August Mason was there in attendance at the August birthday party, but after that, it appears they were on emailing correspondence only. I don't see any evidence to support that Danny August Mason went and talked to him on the driveway. This already was heading down on the end of September, down an ugly path with this counteroffer being sent and the response back to David Crowley, wanting the rights, making the demands about the Rise documentary. But feel free in the comments section of this video below, if there was proof or evidence that Danny August Mason actually went there and talked to him in the driveway. Now, the other thing, which I think is also being deceitful here from Danny Mason, is that it says David looked like he lost a bunch of weight and was fragile. This, I believe, is the first insertion of a narrative where they're trying to make the police and the detectives and the investigators think that David Crowley became unhinged, was not himself, was isolating himself, going so far here to say that he lost a bunch of weight and was fragile. This, I believe, is an outright lie. But please leave your comments below. This is, I think this is planting the seed for the investigators to think, you know what, maybe David did do this. Now, the next section here in the police interview, they talk about after the September meeting, which I don't believe ever took place. Mason states that he received an email on the 1st of October from the attorney. The email was asking Mason to release any rights he had. on. And he said he wanted to review it with his attorney before he signed anything. That very well could be true. I don't think Danny August Mason had any intention of signing that, regardless if he had an attorney look at it or not. Now he says that on December 7th, he received an email directly from Crowley stating that he decided to take it in a different path and he needed to sign a release form. And attached was that release form from October 1st. He said he needs his attorney to look it over. And, quote, in yellow, December 7th was the last contact Mr. Mason had with David Crowley or anyone in his family. Now, we know that's not true. The last contact was December 16th of 2014 from Danny Mason to David Crowley. So December 7th, last contact is outright lie. Now, the very last paragraph here gets into more of the cunning, more of the psychological deceit here from Danny August Mason. During the interview with police, Mr. Mason then asks the officer, Tommy Booth, asked me if I had talked to Mitch Heil yet concerning David Crowley. So now he's steering the conversation. He's basically done with talking about himself and then quickly steers the conversation to the other business partner named Mitch Heil. I advised him that I had not, and Mr. Mason was kind enough to give me his phone number so that he can contact him. He says he believed that they dissolved their partnership and ended on good terms. That's true, and that happened in September, October of 2014. That also is true. I think that was either August or even September. Certainly wasn't October. They had the garage sale already in September. So that is, for the most part, true. But watch how Danny Mason is steering the conversation with the investigator onto other topics. Here he goes out of his way to focus the attention on Mitch Heil and essentially wrap up the interview. Mr. Mason then goes on to describe Crowley as a very loving man towards his family. He was in the military, didn't know what belief system he had, and goes out of his way to leave the door open for any further contacts by telling him he could contact him with any further questions. What a nice guy. Now, the interesting thing is here, we have Mr. Mason's interview recorded on the digital recorder and downloaded to the secure server at the Apple Valley Police Department. That would be something interesting to get the FOIA request for that interview, whether it's for this case or on the Crowley investigation case, or later if police were to pursue charges of lying here to investigators. That certainly is recorded and saved on the server, as there's various lies here by Danny August Mason directly to investigators. That's the update for today. It's the Crowley case updates, November 24th of 2018. The curious case of Danny August Mason. Please leave your comments below. Thanks for listening.
Are you interested in the paranormal, murder mysteries, cryptocurrency, and thought-provoking interviews? Then check out Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking on YouTube, or every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Studio A at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Welcome to the Crypt.
Hello everyone, this is Sophia from the Gray Stage podcast, and I'd like to invite all of our listeners to join the Justice for David Crowley and Family group located on Facebook, where we have almost 4,000 members. In this group, we welcome discussions regarding the case and have all of the documents located in the files section for everyone to review. If you like, you're welcome to visit Greg Fernandez Jr.'s website called The Gray Stage. It's located at thegraystagewordpress.com. You can find his book and all the official documents for this case at his website. Lastly, I'd like to introduce you to Catherine Michelle, who's a part of this podcast. Catherine Michelle has a YouTube channel under her name where she mainly discusses the Crowley case. So please feel free to stop by and give her channel a like and a listen. Until our next podcast, keep seeking the truth and justice for David Crowley and his family.